All right, so as a preliminary matter, this is the Conservation Commission, and this is the 1/26/2021 open meeting being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth.
That might be me.
It's definitely not me.
Okay, I'll try again. No, somebody's still
Phone
echoing.
number that's dialed in.
I think it's a 603 number. Is that you, Bill? Okay.
I'm not sure who that is.
Okay, I just muted it, so it might make it easier for you, Brian.
Okay, let's test, echo. Okay, good. All right, so being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the agenda, which can be found on the Conservation Commission website. The agenda has information identifying how the public may join. Let's see. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and/or telephone conference. Meeting materials were provided to the Conservation Commission members prior to the meeting for review. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and, if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention to do so after you've been called. So permit me to cover some of the ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board members shall be called upon in first name alphabetical order. If board members wish to engage with each other, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After the board members have spoken, the chair will afford the public comment as follows. The chair will seek questions through the raise hand function. For video conference participants, this function can be accessed by clicking on the participants option listed in the menu below the photo gallery. The window will open and display on the right. On the bottom of this participant area, you will see the list of phone or video participants, and on the bottom, you will see the ability to click on a button to raise hand. Please ensure your name is displayed. List your name, address, then your question. Telephone participants can use their phone's keypad while in a Zoom meeting to raise hand by hitting *9. The chair will then seek questions from the public that have hit the raise hand button in the order of which they are listed. The participant will be called on to identify their name and address and then their question. The chair will afford the applicant or the representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. The board will continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and again afford the applicant or rep an opportunity to speak. Should there be a physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns, they will be read for the record, and again, the applicant or rep will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Additional agenda items will be called upon and handled in the same manner. All right, that's the script out of the way. So, moving into the agenda, let's see. We've covered that we have a new employee, so that's kind of fun. For anybody here listening, the next regularly scheduled meeting is listed as February 16th, 2021, again at 7 p.m. Just to put that down and out there. We have no minutes to go through, so we can get straight into our public hearings. We have Rochelle Joseph at 48 Southern Boulevard, an RDA to install a generator on a 6-inch high platform supported on 4 legs dug into the soil of the existing lawn, or a 2-foot 6-inch. Anyway, and is that right? Is it Rochelle Joseph or is it Joseph Rochelle?
I think, is it?
Hi, this is Bill Barrett here representing Rochelle Joseph. My name is William Barrett. I live at 1 Jackson Way in Newbury.
Excellent. All right, well then, why don't you introduce us to things and let us know what's going on.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Rochelle is looking to install a generator, 13 kW generator, on a platform that sits 2 foot 6 inches off the soil, so that they have the 2-foot clearance that's required by Concom and DEP. It will be on 4x6 pressure treated dug-in piles, so, set in concrete. It is in an existing lawn area about 8 feet off the house structure, in the backyard within an enclosed area. It is the whole yard is lawn for the most part, with the exception of gardening, I guess I'd say. There's no dune grass. She sits pretty high up on a berm on Southern Boulevard, and there is no dune in that area. I think that's pretty much it. We've done this previously under the RDA and have been successful at it. Hopefully we'll be tonight.
Okay, thank you. Bill Holt, why don't you tell us what you've seen?
Okay. Let me share my screen. So this is the application. Let me get the pictures. So the house is located is Southern Boulevard, Fordham Way. The house is located right here. I think this is the location of where they're going to put the generator. Is that correct, Bill?
That is correct.
Yeah. So let me go to the pictures. I'm not sure which view this is, Bill. Can you explain what we're looking at, where the generator goes? Is it on this picture or is it not?
It is going on that pictures. If you see those two protective tents for the blueberry bushes,
Yeah.
Those are actually going to be moved, and the generator is going to sit just inside of those, in front of that air conditioning unit on the right-hand side.
Okay. So it's right there. Okay. So as you can see, it is all lawn out there. There's no dune grass or native species to speak of. It's not in the floodplain. It's above the floodplain elevation. It is in the ACEC, I believe. Other than that, I don't think there's. And you were going to put those in concrete sonotubes, or just dig them in and then put concrete in the hole?
Yeah, we're just going to dig them in, minimize the hole size. We just need a little bit of concrete around them. We don't need much. It's not a very heavy unit that we're talking about here, not subjected to winds or anything. So it should be a pretty simple project.
Okay. So I don't really have any other questions. So I'll hand it over to you, Brian, to go through the board.
All right. Yeah, let's go through the board. So, Ben, you want to comment, ask?
Nope, good.
Nothing? All right. Bill Lord? I'm not hearing anything from Bill. I'm assuming there's a thumbs up somewhere in one of these videos I'm missing. All right. Daniel?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. And Peter?
Gosh, I'm the only guy that's going to have a question. Hey, where are the propane tanks going to be for this?
There are actually propane tanks already in the backyard, off to the southern portion of that building. If you look at that same corner again, you will see there's the two heat pumps, and then a little bit further down the line there, probably another 12 feet, are two propane tanks.
You can't see them.
And those are on the ground or those elevated?
You can just about see the edge of the platform of the propane tank, but they are definitely 10 feet away from a combustible.
Okay.
An ignition point.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I also, for once, have nothing to say. So that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill if you've got any final comments. Otherwise, it sounds like we can have a motion.
Yeah, I think it's all set. I have no other comments.
Probably want to
Okay.
check about any abutters or other members of the public who want to speak on the project before we make a motion.
Yeah, I don't see any hands up. Oh, no, I don't see any hands up. I see the co-host has their hands up for some reason. Who's Bill's Mac? Is that Bill? Is that your Mac?
Yes, that's
Yeah, so I don't see any hands. So we'll just put it out there verbally. If there's any abutters, any neighbors, anybody here to speak to this or about this? Going once, going twice. Okay. So now we can have a motion.
It'd be a negative determination, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Negative
I move
3
for a
every
negative
game.
determination.
Second,
All right. Roll call. Benjamin,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Daniel,
yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Peter.
Yes, I agree.
All right. And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right. So, Bill Holt, you want to read him the script? Yep.
Okay, once the hearing is completed and closed, the commission must issue its decision known as a determination within 21 days. As the applicant, you may appeal a determination issued under the act within 10 days. Abutters or 10 residents of the community or Mass DEP can also appeal within a 10-day period. You can't start work until the 10 days is up. Once it is, and there's no appeal, you can begin.
okay. I've got it. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. All right, moving right along. We have Zendeco LLC, 15 Coleman Road, an RDA for an 8-lot open space residential development project that includes a 400-foot driveway, 6 new single-family homes, and renovation of an existing single-family home with associated stormwater management, utility access paths, and limited grading work within the 100-foot buffer. All right. Who's here for that one?
I am Tom Zarico.
All right. Tom, why don't you introduce us to this?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. First of all, again, my name is Tom Zarico. I'm the property owner and applicant. My company, Zenco LLC, holds the property. Here tonight with Phil Henry from Civil Design Group. He's our engineer on this proposed project. I'm a resident of Amesbury, longtime resident of North Andover. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself and this project, and then I'll let Phil get into some details with you. I've been developing for about 30 years, have a little over 200 homes to my credit as a developer and home builder. My record is one of preservation of property. You'll see with this project, if you haven't had the chance to review it, it's consistent with what we've done everywhere we've developed. I purchased somewhere close to 400 acres over the last 30 years, and a little over 70% of those acres, most of which is not wetland. It's mostly upland and really nice properties. has been permanently preserved with the help of Essex County Greenbelt Trust for Public Lands, CPA funding, trustees, etc. So it's kind of our mode of operation to look for properties that we can develop responsibly, create some needed and quality housing, but also do something good for the environment and for the communities at the same time. And this is one of those projects, we hope. This property, if you've had a chance to look over the application, Phil Henry did give an excellent brief summary of the property. It's 32 acres on Coleman Road. You may know the old colonial home there, built in 1787, and the red barn that sits beside it. Our proposal here is to only work on the street side of the wetland, which bisects the property. Most of the property, I don't know the exact percentages, upland. There is a large upland beyond the wetland, and there's a farm crossing that exists across that wetland. It's been there forever, and provides a nice access to that rear property, which we're trying to preserve in its entirety. That's the reason for proposing and implementing the cluster or open space development plan here. And I don't think I don't want to agonize over too many details. If you've seen the plan, if you've seen the summary, this is relatively straightforward. Most of our work is outside of the buffer zone. There's a little bit of one house inside the buffer zone and a small area of stormwater inside the buffer zone. Other than that, everything is outside of the jurisdictional areas. And I think with that as sort of a little bit of background, can I let Phil speak for just a couple of minutes on some of the more details of this?
Perfect.
Good evening.
Very
My name
good.
is Phil Henry with Civil Design Group. Can everybody hear me? Excellent.
Yeah, Phil, not Bill.
Bill, would you mind sharing the screen at this point?
You can, I gave you a co-host, so you can share your screen if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
That way you can move around.
All right, can everybody see this?
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, let me just, get to the open space plan. This will be better. So I'll start with the open space plan, which is, you should see sheet 6 on your screen. Does everybody see that?
Yep.
So this property is a 31.7 acre tract of land, and of the 31.7 acres, 6.5 of it is wetlands that traverses through the property. The wetland line is this blue line here, and then this red line is the 100-foot buffer that transects the site. What we're proposing to do, and the existing condition, as you can see here, there's a little bit of a nook, I call it, that's about 5.5 acres on this side of the wetlands, on the south side of the wetlands, and on that property, there's an existing house, a barn, an accessory building, of which we're proposing to maintain the existing house and barn. And also there's an outhouse that is going to be reincorporated into the proposed development via some sort of studio up on lot 7. And I could zoom in a little bit, but essentially what you're looking at here is an 8-lot open space residential subdivision, of which this gray area here would be designated open space that would be protected back as part of this approval process, should we get that far. And that gray area here is about 27.2 acres or 86% of the lot. And within that comprises pretty much all of the wetland area and about 20.7 acres of upland, which is about 65% of the existing tract of land. So I think that's a key point to make, the fact that much of this property will stay open space. And those of you that have walked this site, there's on the north side of the wetlands and throughout the wetlands, it's a fairly rolling terrain with existing trails that we're proposing to maintain. And actually, we're proposing to connect a new trail into the existing trails. So the front section of the property, we are proposing 7 additional lots, one of which would be a lot that is going to be housing the existing house and barn, which is lot 1 up here. And then we're proposing 6 additional lots with new lots on them, new homes on them, excuse me, under the open space residential provision that we're currently in front of planning board, to seek and go through that process. The site will be serviced by about a 400-foot right-of-way, as shown here, that meets the fire standards. We are seeking a number of waivers through subdivision. However, we do show a complete fire apparatus so that safety vehicles can maintain and maneuver about the site. The work within the 100-foot buffer, and I could zoom in. Let me go to, actually, I'm going to go to the grading plan here. Just bear with me here for a second. Okay, can everybody see this sheet?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just to orientate everybody here, this red line here is the 100-foot buffer that traverses through the property. The work that is proposed to be inside the 100-foot buffer is limited to grading, much of which grading and all this trail work here. A small piece of the infiltration system, the subsurface infiltration system, will encroach within the 100-foot, and then a section of Unit 4 will lie within the 100-foot as well. The rest of it is just lawn and grading. I think it's important to note that there is no non-rooftop impervious area contributing directly into the wetland. That's in terms of the watershed. I should say no asphalt. So all of the roadway and the driveways do not drain towards the wetland without being treated and infiltrated and recharged. So I think that's an important note. And this will be a subsurface infiltration system, so there'll be a lawn on top of that. In terms of total area, it's about a half an acre of work within the 100-foot. And if it wasn't for the trail network, we would largely be about 50 feet away from the wetland line. And this structure is about 70 feet from the wetland line at its closest point. In terms of stormwater, there's really two distinct watersheds. As you enter the site off of the road, you climb within a foot or two vertically within the first 30 feet, and all of this front yard, if you will, drains directly into the street. But the rest of the site drains into the wetland. So we wanted to make sure that we were collecting, treating, pre-treating, and recharging all runoff prior to discharging into the wetlands. And we've achieved that. This, or at least we think we did. This site complies with the applicable stormwater standards, including treatment, peak mitigation, and recharge, most notably. So despite the fact that we're proposing an 8-lot subdivision, 7 of which will be homes, we really feel that the work within the 100-foot is really simplified. And actually, this process, this layout in front of you was an evolution of a number of meetings with staff. with walking the site our first vision was to cross the wetland with some estate lots back there, and then subsequent to a site walk with folks, we decided to stay on this side of the wetland and not really disturb it at all. So that's the general overview. I'm happy to go into anything more specific, but I just wanted to give you a brief understanding of what we're proposing to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Brian, could I jump in for one more minute here? Just to
Yeah, go
elaborate?
ahead, Tom.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but you know, what we're really trying to do here is run concurrent hearings with planning and Concom. We submitted all of these applications into staff on the same day. The hearing schedules and processes are slightly different, so we haven't formalized in front of planning yet, but we want to keep the hearings open on both ends so that we eventually end up with a consistent set of conditions and work conditions and plans. So, you know, we're obviously, you know, we're looking for some direction in terms of the application and to answer any technical questions that you might have, I guess, at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well then, Bill Holt, let's turn it to you. What have you seen? What have you picked up on so far?
All right. Can I ask that he stop sharing his screen so I can?
Sure.
Okay. Let me 1 second. The right. All right. My first question is, the roadway itself, is that going to be a public way, or is it going to be a town road, or is it staying private?
Bill, the intent is that it be a public way.
Public way, okay.
Yeah.
And I see that you label the lots as the houses as units. Are they going to be individual ownership lots, or just like a
Yes,
condo type association?
Yeah, they're intended as fee ownership. The only common element is a septic system that we've proposed on lot 1. Those are the best soils, the most accommodating soils, and actually the furthest from the wetland as well. So we're to the east of the existing home and barn. That's the only association or common element that's involved, at least from the proposal standpoint.
Okay. And the open space, is that going to remain in the association for the homeowners, or is it going to be donated to the town, or is
that the intent? My intent is always to donate to the town, unless the town prefers a different steward, such as Essex County Greenbelt or the trustees or the Concom. However, whatever the preference is, I think that's it should be held in that kind of a way, but not by an association.
Okay. All right. So that being said, I see that it's open space, which is a great idea. I think it's a relatively moderate use of the land with the 7 lots being sort of up in the front and sort of condensed into one area, so that you preserve a lot of the property is open space. If it's going to be open to the public or given to the public, it would be nice to have a place to park for people to come and visit. I don't see any parking available for the public at all. Not even 1 or 2 or 3 cars that can come in and park here and walk the trails. So it's really going to be limited to probably just the local neighbors in the area that can probably access this property, which is really unfortunate. I think it would be great for the town to be able to use it as a whole. But that's just one of my opinion. So,
Bill, let me address that if I could, Brian.
Go ahead.
It's something that we have discussed, and it's always a dilemma with open space. How open or how accommodating do you make it? I mean, once you start introducing parking spaces, you start to lose some, I guess, some control over what goes on there, and end up with some kind of a maintenance issue. One of the things that I did not submit, but I'm certainly happy to, is I had Chris Huntress, who's our landscape architect, do a little bit of a study as to how many residences there are within a 5-minute and a 10-minute walk from this location, and I can provide that to you, at a subsequent meeting to clarify. There's actually quite a number of homes within walking distance of this, so no, it isn't everybody, but it certainly is a fair number of homes, that have pedestrian access to this point. And the roadway certainly is, because it's designed to accommodate fire apparatus to a pretty high standard. There's certainly enough width for some paralleling there too. I'm not surprised to have the discussion. I think it's a question of how do you introduce that into a neighborhood without also introducing some uncontrollable element into the neighborhood as well.
okay. Yeah, it's a really nice piece of property. I did walk it with you back a few months ago, and it's a beautiful piece of property with a lot of nice trails out through it. And it would be nice for the public to be able to do that.
For sure.
Take advantage of it. So all the roof being infiltrated, being directed towards the drainage infiltration basins. I see leaders coming into the manholes. So the entire buildings the roof is being caught and directed into the drainage system.
For the most part, Bill, substantially, definitely all the front portions of the homes have not been finalized, and the roof lines have not been finalized. But what we did is we assumed, I think all the units, the front yards go in. I think 5 of the back units do not. However, we accounted for that in the HydroCAD. Those go directly unmitigated. But as you know, those are not considered a source of any pollutants.
Yeah, correct. They're considered clean water. Yep. All right. Oops, I went to the wrong one. What did I do? Wanted 9. I did look at the drainage calculations, and you used the appropriate runoff values. The calcs look pretty good. I do have a couple questions on the infiltration system itself, though.
Sure.
I noticed you had a couple of soil tests in the package for the stormwater report. I think D1, which is very hard to see, but let's see if I can zoom in a little more. What did I do? Sorry. Computer's not cooperating.
Yeah, I think you're on the layout plan now, Bill.
All right, wait a minute. Let me get back to where I was. Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. I do it again?
Yeah,
That's
unfortunately.
it.
That's the utility plan, but yeah, it's easier to see actually on this one.
Yeah, okay, so you have a D1 right here, D2, D3,
Yep.
and I think it's test pit 4.4.
Yeah.
So D1 is kind of the only one that's really close to it, and 4.4.
Yep.
When I looked at the logs for those test pits, I think D1, the elevation is right around 78 with a 6-foot water table, so it puts that 72. And I know your bottom of your infiltration units are at 80.5 25, and the bottom of the stone bed is 79. So that's far. That's well above the water table. Then you go over to test pit 4.4, and it's at elevation 86.5 with a 6-foot water table, which puts that water table at 80.5. Somewhere in between here, you know, it's probably a sloped water table, so it's anywhere between 80.5 to 72. So you got no test pits at all in the infiltration bed itself.
Yeah.
And I also see this nice big label of rock, which is really close to the infiltration system. I would think it might warrant a couple of test pits, maybe one in this corner and one down in this corner to see. I think you'd probably find on this end because it's doing more fill down there than excavation. But in these two areas, I think if you had a couple of test pits just to check out the water tables there, and obviously up in this corner, any presence of ledge or unsuitable material up in that area. I did notice on the pre-development and post-development watershed maps, the soils are listed as hydrologic groups C's and D soils. I think there's a split. I think the front half of this infiltration system is a hydrologic group soils C, and this is D in the back, which is obviously typically not a great soil for infiltration. You use the Rawls rate of 1.02 inches per hour, which is more of a B soil, actually the best rate in the B soil classification. And I know you had logs that said loamy sand, sandy loam, which is a B soil. So I was just thinking it might be more appropriate to use maybe the lower end of the B soil rate, the 0.52 inches per hour versus the 102. But it's just, I know planning has a consultant engineer that's going to be reviewing it, and I'm curious to see what he has to say about the same data that you're using. I would like to see some soil testing in there just to verify the soils for that infiltration area.
Okay.
And I do also notice that you have the outlet. It's sort of pointing right towards the abutter, the neighbors. And I believe the way the grading is listed, the way the grading is on the grading sheet, which is probably the sheet back, your grading basically is going to force that water off of the property onto this neighboring property. The flat end section should have, well, I was thinking you possibly could reroute this with a manhole back in this direction, maybe even go under the proposed path and maybe just charge back in that area, so that it doesn't go onto a abutting property and actually stays and actually feeds the wetlands in that direction. I mean, on a 100-year storm, you could have a pretty good flow coming out of there from the looks of it, based on this whole system that surcharges at, I think it's 83.93 or something like that.
Yep.
Which is it still stays within the basin itself and doesn't go beyond DMH5 because DMH4 is higher. But all the water is going to come out this way and end up going basically to the west towards the abutting properties. I think maybe we might want to have that redirected, and then at the outlet have some energy dissipation, some riprap or some other way of level spreader or something that will decrease the amount of flow coming out and try to prevent any erosion from happening. Basically, the other thing I was going to mention is that you do have, say, some part of this structure is in the buffer zone and part of the unit 4 is in the buffer zone, and I'm not sure if it's inappropriate to handle that under the RDA or if it would be more appropriate to handle it under the under a notice of intent, but that's up to the commission to decide. I mean, it is fairly minimal work. It's not you're not getting too close to the wetlands. There is some grading and some clearing down within 25 feet or so on, I think it's unit to the right of unit 4. But that's about all I have to comment at this point. I think possibly I would recommend the commission take a site walk. It is a pretty unique site, and the back property is very nice. And I think we really appreciate it if you take a walk out there and take a look at it. So I'll hand it back to Brian for commission comments.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, let's go around the horn. Let's see what the commission has to say. Benjamin, why don't you start us off?
Thank you. First of all, I echo a lot of what Bill had to say about it. I think this is a great design, and I appreciate what was done here, given the parcel. And when I first saw where it was going to be, it's not what I expected to see in a very pleasant way. So I appreciate the efforts you guys took here to do it this way. That said, somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory about I would encourage you guys as we move forward to think about the public way process, because my memory of the town regulations are that if you want to have a new public way, it has to pass town meeting. Am I remembering this right? Dan, do you remember this? Bill's nodding his head. We went through this on a recent subdivision. So the lift to get this as a public way may be a good deal higher than you were. I don't know what you were assuming coming in, but it may be more than you can get to. So I would encourage you to think about alternate plans as far as going the public way route. That said, whatever you do for an easement process, I'm assuming it's going to be in perpetuity.
Yes.
Okay. And then finally getting to, for right now, I mean, I definitely echo the need for a site walk, but I will say that relative to what Bill said at the end, if either Bill or Philip, if you could put up sheets 7, 8, or 9, any of those 3 sheets would work. And kind of getting to that northeast corner. Yeah, Bill, this one works. You can zoom in on that northeast corner just a little bit. Yes, please. Yeah, that is a good sheet. So that dotted line there is the limit of work for erosion control. Is that also what you foresee to be the limits of landscaping after this? After you're done with construction?
Definitely. We certainly would never exceed that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in my mind, given that you're basically talking about removing a big chunk of buffer there, including up to, in that far corner, well, I mean, it looks like it's pretty much 25 feet to the wetland, and converting it to lawn, where that right angle goes. Yeah, right there, Bill. Thank you. That's within 25 feet of the wetland. Yeah. I would also, I mean, that's going to be something the whole commission is going to, I think, wrangle with. But in my mind, the permanent changes that would be made as proposed would make this an NOI rather than an RDA.
Yeah, that corner, Brian, if I could jump in on that, Ben, that's an interesting point. Phil, I'm not sure if there's a reason why we have that erosion control like that. Is there any reason why that erosion control can't meet the 50 and then run along the 50? Or do we have a grading challenge?
Yeah, so I could explain. If you, Bill, do you want to zoom to if you want to go to sheet 9, the grading plan? There it is. Yeah. So right where, so if you look behind unit 5, you'll see I
have it on my screen too. So I'm
okay.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
So right behind unit 5, you'll see a contour of 94 that swales runoff from behind the building north. That limit of work line that straddles that 92 contour, that is about 20 feet off the wetland. That is what I estimate. That's where Tom has to go grab that and bring that grade back in order to maintain positive pitch at just over 1%. So with that being said, that's the only reason why it's that close. So after it's reshaped, which we're talking very minimal reshaping, it could be, we can spec out, it could be more of a naturalized finish and not like a manicured lawn to that extent.
Do you have a landscaping plan?
Yeah, the last sheet was prepared by Chris Huntress. it's a fairly basic plan that just focuses on trees. But as this process evolves, particularly with planning, I anticipate, submitting a revised set, but I can make a note of that. So I guess what I'm saying, if that's the tipping point for an RDA to an NOI, we can definitely work with that area in terms of renaturalizing it after the fact.
Yeah, one of the things, just as we're having a dialogue a little bit, I mean, certainly one of the things that I've done to make a permanent demarcation point would be to construct a field stone wall along the 50 and just make that very distinctly sort of a hard place to get to for anyone.
All right, Ben, how do you feel about that? You
I'm willing to hear with
anything else in your mind?
No, I appreciate the idea of a fieldstone wall, because it usually is my reply is when people are like, oh, we'll stop there. It's like, well, that's not going to stop future homeowners from marching right through that, especially when it's
That's
freshly
right.
disturbed. I think that at this point, I'll be curious to, it's up in the air for me, and I'll be curious to see what other commission members have to say about that. And thank you for the responses. I appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, so then Bill Lord, what do you see?
You're on mute, Bill.
Hmm.
There you go.
All right. Thumbs up. Okay. You got off mute though. So then, Daniel, your turn.
So I guess a question for me is just on the trail system, the open space. It seems like we're not considering that in this application. Is that other than what's shown on the plan that I've seen, or is there some narrative that relates to?
Bill, if I or Dan, if I could just elaborate on that, I think a site visit would do wonders. There is just a tremendous existing trail system there that is old farm paths, very nicely cleared, in general, well drained. In fact, even as long as you don't run out there right after a rainstorm, you can drive right out throughout most of that parcel over these really nice paths. Whether or not, I mean, the paths run almost the entire perimeter of the parcel along the stone wall that borders this parcel. It's really pretty elegant. I know Peter has been out there and seen it. Others of you may have seen it, but Bill, I know you saw part of it. But there's a pretty nice existing network of trails out there.
Yeah, my point was just mostly that, if there is any improvements made out there, we should probably know about that. I mean, you might like to have some kind of maintenance component to allow routine maintenance out there in the wetland resource areas and so on. Are there any wetland crossings on that trail system that are going to be new?
No, there's one wetland crossing behind lot 4 there, existing culvert bordered with fieldstone head walls, very traversable. No reason really to do anything, I don't think, at that crossing.
I'll look forward to the site visit. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. All right. Moving right along. Kevin, what do you see?
I unfortunately didn't have much of a chance to look at the plans before this. If I can make the site walk, I would like to. I drove by this property for many times when I lived in the area, so I'd like to check it out. But I don't have any comments right now.
Okay. Mary, how much of this did you make? I saw you came in the middle.
Yes, I think I got most of it. I would like to do a site walk as well. It looks like a pretty good project from what I can see so far, but I am not in support of doing this as an RDA, especially for lots 4 and 5. Doing it as an RDA really handcuffs the commission in terms of its ability to condition a project and keep the contractor accountable and, require a certificate of compliance and make sure everything is done according to plan and everything. I don't see that I don't see being able to support an RDA for at least lots 4 and 5. There may be portions of the project that may be applicable to, and I'd be open to considering that at a site visit. But if there's clearing that's proposed within 25 feet of the wetland, a large portion of the buffer zone, and there's construction of a home in the buffer zone, I think that we need to require a notice of intent for that. That'd be my only comment.
Okay. Thank you. Peter, what's on your mind?
Well, thanks for asking. First, Tom, good to see you again. And this is a beautiful site. Bill, I don't know if Bill and I did it twice. I've been out there a couple times. And then wait till you see the trail system in the back. You'll appreciate the benefit it'll be to the community. And I echo some of the comments about, allowing it to be accessible. Tom, thank you. And also, Tom, thank you for kind of following the direction of the conversation to not do crossing of the wetlands with any housing and keeping everything close together. That was a well-received conversation and modification. What was I going to say? I think interesting, Tom, Ben gave you some gentle guidance with regards to public way versus private way. So just for your information's sake, you'll probably be hearing it from planning as well. Yeah, I think a site walk, and when the commission sees this, there'll be a lot of appreciation. And as I recall, lots 5 and 4 are pretty much flat grass right now. Is that right? There isn't much to be disturbed there. Is that right, Phil?
In the existing condition, Peter?
Yes.
Well, there's a remnant of a foundation that is where lot 4 is, and then there's some tree canopy, but it's disturbed. I'd call it disturbed vegetation. It's not naturalized, if you will.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for now. Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
As for myself, I think most of my questions, would be answered more on a site walk. The trail access, grading there, I'm curious about in terms of the RDA versus the NOI. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been involved with an RDA that involved, quote unquote, real work inside the jurisdictional space. It's like the project that we just did that you saw come through where, it's minor adjustments to things. It's not creating new things entirely. But if, as Peter was just alluding to, if most of the land is already dealt with, maybe there's an argument. But, I do second Mary's point about, if we do this as an RDA, then we just sort of like shake hands and see you later. It doesn't exactly leave the commission in any kind of, position to, check in the same way that an NOI would. But, I'd rather go out and see the site first before I get too strong an opinion on that. So that being said, what's on the calendar? Who's in charge of suggesting a date?
Before we launch into this, Brian, can I ask a related follow-up question?
Yeah.
What's the current state of flagging on the property? Because I think if we're going to do a site walk, it would certainly be given the questions we have, it'd be informative if, I assume that the 100-foot buffer is flagged right now. But then I don't know that if you flag the limit of work and erosion control as well, just to make sure, especially in that corner, we're all kind of started to think about that flagging's at least there so that we can completely visualize where everything would go.
Right. Right. And like where the stakes are, and, you know, to Bill Holt's point at the beginning, where the infiltration would happen, and all these sort of, you know, back of the development points of interest. Yeah. The more stakes in the ground, the better.
Yeah, just it helps us schedule too, because if it's not all flagged, we want to give you time to flag it before we go out.
Yeah, the wetland flags are in general still there. Most of them were metal tagged, I believe. So they're pretty well in in view. We have not staked or flagged the 100-foot buffer. If that's something that you'd like us to do, then we can certainly do that in a pretty short order, though.
I think the 100-foot buffer and that erosion control, especially at least in the back, would be useful.
Yeah, yeah.
Also the rear
Yeah,
building
and the
corners.
structures.
Yeah, just the building corners, especially just the
Yeah.
ones close to the wetland.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can take care of that in relatively short order.
All right. So then let's bring up a calendar. What's everybody's calendars look like coming up for, I don't know, I presume, I don't know, let's throw the second week of February out there as a starting point.
But when is our next meeting, Brian?
February 16th.
The 16th? Okay.
Yeah, the third week. So, yeah, on the 16th, and so the second week would be the 8th, you know, so the 7th through the 13th. Does that look?
Is that vacation week for? Not that anyone's going anywhere, but is that vacation week? I just want to throw it out there because if it is, people might not be around.
Yeah, I don't know anymore, Bill. Yeah. No, I'm not going anywhere for what it's worth.
No. Yeah, me either. So yeah, it'd be a good week then.
All right.
Yeah, it would be nice to do this before the next meeting, of course, if it's possible. It would be great.
What about, do we want to do this a weekday, weekend? Well, if we look at the 7th and the 8th, the Sunday, Monday, you know, does anyone have a preference?
Sunday is better for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can pretty much guarantee I won't be there.
All right. Is there a day that you could be there?
I'll be 4 days into being a dad, so.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Thank you. Super Bowl Sunday.
Bring the baby.
Yeah.
Swaddle them up.
Could
All
also do
right.
the
Well, you're
6th.
excused.
If that's is Saturday, the 6th an option?
I mean, they're all options at this point. We all seem to be rather scheduled. We don't have anything to compete with.
How about Sunday, the 7th at 9 a.m.?
How about 10
All right.
a.m.?
Sunday the 7th at 9. Anyone want to
10.
offer something
We'll
else?
do this every time. 10 a.m.
10. 10 is good too.
Yep.
10 works.
All right. Going once, going twice. 10 a.m. Sunday the 7th. Does that work for everybody except Kevin?
I think so.
All right. Hearing no one saying no, so I'll take that as a yes.
Hopefully there won't be snow.
Is there somewhere to park? I haven't been over that way in a while.
Oh, sure. Yes, there's
Yeah.
plenty of off Coleman parking in the drive around the barn and everything. Sure.
Okay. All right. Well then, Sounds like we're all set. Anybody, let's see, let's check the public. Do we have any public comment here? Anybody, any neighbors, abutters, concerned, citizenry? No. Okay. Any final comments from anybody on this? And if not, we'll, now's the time for a motion to pick this up again on the 16th.
This is Phil. Should I guess we can discuss on site some of the comments from Bill regarding stormwater. Is that better suited to talk out on site, Bill, you think?
We can. Yeah.
Okay. All right, excellent.
Okay. Yeah, so anybody want to make a motion to see them again later? At a date and time certain?
Motion to continue this meeting to the 16th of February. And I leave the.
7 p.m.
Very good.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, roll call. Benjamin,
Yes.
Bill, Daniel,
Yes,
Kevin,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
and Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, very good. Thank you, guys. We will see you out there on, what did we say, the 7th?
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, too.
Yeah.
All right. So moving along, we have Craig and Robin Gould at 65 Plum Island Turnpike. They have an NOI to construct a new 8 by 10 foot shed and installation of various native plantings and boulders for landscape improvements. All right, where are the Goulds?
Good evening. My name is Matt Steinell. I'm from Millennium Engineering. I'm here tonight representing Craig Gould.
Okay, the floor is yours. Why don't you introduce us?
All right, just check here and I can share screen.
You should be all set. Yeah.
All right, you're all able to see that now?
Looks good.
All right, this is a single family home. As you're heading towards the island, it's on the left side of the road just before you get to the bridge. It is a single family home that was constructed several years ago. You may recall driving to the island for a long time. It was a steel frame that was there. In the last few years, a home was constructed on that steel frame and the site was developed. And we have an outstanding, we have a very small yard here, a little bit of lawn off to the side here. This was all closed out from the original order of conditions. And the applicant would like to develop this into a little bit more of a safe and usable yard here, as well as to construct a shed off to the left-hand side of the home here. So this little section of the plan shows what the site looks like today. Down here is what we're proposing. Installation of a lot of plantings going along the top of the existing block wall that's out there now, as well as the installation of some boulders along the front here for safety to keep cars from, pulling off into the wrong parts of the yard or, coming out of control into the property, given the house is so close to the road. He'd like to have some boulders put in there. We're going to supplement that again with plantings all around to create a little bit of a yard effect here within the planted area. And then the construction again of an 8 by 10 shed. This is the largest shed that we could fit on the property due to the proximity of the block wall, the existing structure, and then conforming with the front setback for zoning. So that's where we came up a little bit with that odd size shed, the 8 by 10. It's a relatively straightforward project as far as minor in detail. It's a shed, plantings, and boulders along the front. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Bill Holt, why don't you walk us through what you've seen so far?
Well, I don't really have too many comments on it. It's all lawn right now, I believe. It's all existing lawn on top of that
correct.
wall. They're in the ACEC, I think they're in the ACEC and in the flood area, but it's fairly a minimal minimal impact to any of those. So the plantings, I don't know if they're using native or just that's like arborvitae, some more of a screening hedgerow type thing. I don't know if that's acceptable to the commission or not, but I'll let the commission have their comments. I'm pretty much all set with it, really.
Okay. So then let's take it to the commission. Benjamin, what do you see?
I don't see anything outside of the last comment that Bill made where I have not had a chance to peruse the planting list yet, but it may be good to see more of a, if you wanted to get a screening effect, then use something like a northern white or an eastern red cedar than an arborvitae, and trying towards some plants that are going to have some wildlife value and be native to the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bill Lord?
I think it looks good. I'd like to see the native plantings, but other than that, it looks good.
Okay. Daniel?
Just looking at that plan, I'm kind of wondering where the property line is. If it's that heavy line that's parallel to the road, it looks like a lot of this is maybe in the right of way. I don't know if that's significant at all, or.
I can speak to that, Commissioner Streeter. I did speak with the owner about this. That heavy line that you see there is the front property line. This is the Plum Island Turnpike out in the front here. But you can see the majority of their driveway actually extends out here. Even the greater width part of it here is all out into that right of way. The pavement for the actual traveled way is way out here, which is part of the reason it's a very narrow part of grass here that is actually part of his property that he has this yard, but he actually utilizes all of this as yard. And for safety reasons, that's the reason he wanted to put the boulders there. I did tell him that it is off of his property. It's in the right of way. And at any time down the road, the town, the state could come through and choose to widen the road, and they're not going to ask him permission to move his boulders. And he says, I understand that. If they tell me I have to move them, they'll get moved. If somebody else moves them, they get moved. He's not going to cause a stink about it. But in the short term, while he's utilizing that area, he would like just kind of that safety factor to have those boulders there.
Okay, just another question is the shed, how is that situated related to the grade on site and the flood elevation?
So right now we have it as a shed to be constructed stick built because it's an odd size on grade. So it would be sitting on blocks, cinder blocks or something like that, and just set on grade. It's not going to be up in the air and like that there. The existing flood elevation and Bill had mentioned that this was in the ACC. Actually, I panned over here to note number 4 to show that we had designated all of the resource areas here, and there's a few of them here. So we have bordering vegetated wetland as delineated by Kairos Environmental back in the 2006 permit. We didn't bother having the wetland line reviewed again at this point because it is pretty much bound by that block wall and not going to change. So we didn't feel the need to have a new environmental review of it. We know it's not in the upland portion above the block wall, and it essentially follows the block wall right at the edge. We have salt marsh. We have land subject to coastal storm flowage because this is abutting the floodplain that's around the Merrimack River. We have special flood hazard zone AE, which is elevation 14, riverfront area, as well as the Great Marsh ACEC. So we hit everything. Short of barrier beaches, we pretty much hit everything you could possibly hit on this site. It is previously developed, previously filled and graded, and now it has a Scott's lawn turf type of vegetation here. Because we're not on the barrier beach, we did utilize these plants here, and we didn't call for anything specific as far as native plants, but I know the owner, again, is really looking to kind of create a windbreak to keep the wind from blowing through there, and the species, I think, is less important to him than having that windbreak and the safety out along the road. So I'm sure he'd be happy to swap that out to the native plants. But that's essentially, I hope I answered your questions, and I tried to answer a few questions from before where I didn't jump in.
If you could clear this up, there's a contour line that goes through the shed.
Yes,
I think it says 6,
9.
9.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, you can see right here, essentially where the shed is a spot grade,
Okay.
8.8.
Yeah. But, the flood elevation is
14.
14. I think it might be more than that even. 13. It's 13 now because that was NAVD or something.
Mhm.
I think I've got some concerns about compliance with stuff that we would normally, look at in a situation like this, but you've answered my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Kevin, what do you see?
I don't have any further comments. I like what has been said already.
Okay. Mary?
I had the same comment that Dan did about the property ownership, because there's work proposed that's not on the property. And technically, either the notice of intent needs to be signed by the property owner or some kind of a notification provided saying that the property owner gives permission or is aware of the filing of the notice of intent. They don't have to necessarily give permission, but some kind of acknowledgement that the work is authorized by the owner, being, I guess, the town, or I'm not sure if that's town right of way or how that works there. I don't have a problem with the landscaping. The boulders typically would be a problem if they were in a velocity zone, but that's not a velocity zone. The plantings, I would agree, should be native plantings. And the shed, I don't have an objection to it being constructed there, although right at grade, I'd be concerned about what's being stored in it in a floodplain, because it will get flooded out. So I don't know if there's any special condition that we want to put on that. It's not something that can be easily monitored, but if there's gas or equipment being stored in there, then that's potentially a hazard. And also the site is, in addition to all the other resource areas that were described, this site is also in priority habitat. And I was wondering whether natural heritage was copied with this notice of intent, and if you've had any response yet.
Let me go ahead and check the file here. I should have something if they were notified.
It may be exempt because you're mostly just doing plantings and it's a small shed. So it very well could qualify as exempt activities.
Yep.
under.
So can you see my screen now? Or do I have to do a new share?
I can see it.
So this is the natural heritage map, and you can actually see that the house is outside of the mapped area. It looks like they I don't know the exact distance behind the house they went, but they cut a straight line across there and kind of
Okay, great.
took it out.
Perfect. I think it's probably going to be an exempt activities anyway, so that shouldn't be a major holdup. But those were my comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Peter?
Just the comments that were made. And hey, Bill Holt, should the right-of-way be brought to Martha's attention, maybe to into that piece?
Sorry, I missed that.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'll say it again. Should Martha be brought into the discussion with regards to the plantings in the right-of-way?
Martha, potentially DPW as well.
Okay.
We need to probably weigh in.
Okay, that's just my comment. Thanks.
Okay. So then, Matthew, just to sort of follow along with what's been said already, you said if you scroll over on the side of your plan, you've got the wetland flagging from 06. Is that right?
That's correct. Kairos Environmental,
Yeah.
Bill Deasy did the flagging in, looks like March of 06.
Do you happen to know, is that when the house was put in?
That was when this permitting was done for the home, yes.
Okay. Do you happen to have any of the permits that were associated with that? Is that something that you have access to, or Bill Holt? If you do, it might have bearing on, our property line discussion, what's in some of the older permits.
I can take a look. I haven't yet, but I can take a look and see if we have it. We
Yeah,
lost a lot of files, but we might have that one.
I will
did-
say that we may also have it. If Bill doesn't, the order of conditions itself is likely recorded at the registry, and we can pull a copy of that. But to just to keep above board here, I don't believe that it really has any bearing on the property line discussion. We did the survey. That is absolutely the property line. There's no question there. The only question is whether or not the commission is comfortable approving the work, and what's the necessary steps to do it. Regardless of whether the commission approved work previously, it doesn't really.
Yeah, I was thinking more in the vein of, special perpetual orders, about how to like stay inside or outside the property line. And if there's anything there that would, be useful at this point.
I got you.
You're right. It's a low, but there's always a chance. That's all.
Sure.
Mary, I hear you chiming in on the side there. Right? That was you, Mary?
She looks like she might have frozen.
While we're waiting for Mary to unfreeze, can we ask what the intent of the shed is?
So I'm looking here quickly. I don't believe the owner is on unless he's the phone
He
number.
appears to be on. I see a Robin Gould. That's what
I'm looking quickly and I'm missing him.
I think he's here.
Yep.
Mr. Gould, can you unmute yourself?
Hi there.
How you doing?
So the purpose of the shed is to store bicycles, maybe a grill during the winter, some landscaping equipment. I have gotten rid of most of any of my gasoline equipment. So my mower, I bought a electric mower. I plan on converting just about everything over to electric, so not gasoline.
Thank you.
How's Mary? Is she unfrozen yet?
She may have dropped off.
Yeah. Don't see her.
Yeah, I don't see her anymore. All right. Well, when she comes back.
I think also given the property line discussion, it sounds like this is going to be continued.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the more information we have, the better is where I'm coming down on it. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to support what everybody else already said about, the plantings, and the more variety, the better, I think would be nice. And other than that,
Mary's back.
I suppose, there we go. You're quick. You're quick, Ben.
I lost my connection. Just one quick thing. I did look up that there was an order of conditions issued for this and a certificate of compliance. So it is it's recorded at the registry. So you should be able to find that, Bill. I didn't see any special conditions, but
Yeah,
that would affect it.
The only problem with that is we don't get a copy of the old plans either, unfortunately.
Right.
If we don't, if our files were lost due to that rain event we had to destroy our files, then we wouldn't be able to get the old plans back.
All right. So then what I'm hearing is that it sounds like everyone would be more comfortable waiting to hear back from the town about the right-of-way usages. Yes? Yeah, I see nodding. Okay. So then, Bill Holt, I presume you'll take care of that?
Yep, we can definitely make the inquiries and see what we can find out.
Okay. So then in that case, we're going to have to see you guys again from the sound of it. And I think too, we've made enough commentary about some other things, so there's a little bit of work to do regardless.
It sounds like the only issues I'm hearing really have to do with the native vegetation and then the lot line question. Am I getting that? Or was there anything else?
Yeah. Whether or not we want to have a conversation about sort of affixing the shed to the ground so that if there is a flood, nothing floats away.
And the shed,
that might be a useful conversation to have. But yeah, it sounds like the better wildlife habitat you could put together that accomplishes the goal of screening, that would be nice to see.
Okay. Bill, I just looked on the file folder that I have here for this project, and the 2016 job actually references an old Millennium job number from 2006. So it looks like we may have even done that permitting, in which case I will have access to that plan. So I'll look for that in the morning and PDF that to you.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, then, who would like to make a motion to see these guys again on the 16th?
I will move to
And I'm
continue
not
this.
seeing any hands.
Oh, yep,
Anybody
sorry.
from the public? I'm double checking. Sorry. I
Mr.
don't see you
Gould.
going once.
Well, Mr. Gould is unmuted. He may have one more thing to say.
No, I'm good. I just appreciate you guys taking the time to look at our plan.
Hey, we appreciate you coming in and asking us to look at it. Anyway, I don't see anybody from the public, any abutters, going once, going twice. Okay, yeah, let's move on with that.
I'll move to
Go ahead.
Continue until February 16th at 7 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call vote. Benjamin,
Yes.
Bill Lord, Daniel,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I will also vote in the affirmative. All right. Thank you, guys. Moving right along, we have David Manti at 0 Pine Island Road, map R30, lot 5, DEP number 0501330. A continued NOI to construct a dock/pier, ramp, and floating dock within Saltmarsh Resource Area and ACEC. And the applicant has already requested a continuance. So, Bill Holt, unless you have anything to say, sounds like we have a vote on a continuance.
I think that's appropriate. Yep.
All right. Anybody here, general public, here to comment on this one? Going once, going twice. Nope. Okay.
I'll move to continue.
Second.
Excellent. Roll call. Benjamin. No?
Yes.
Ben, did you vote?
Sorry, my internet is passing down the town chain here from Mary to me. I will also say yes.
It's all that snow. It's the flurries coming down. It's ruining the power. Bill Lord. Thumbs up. Dan Streeter.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes, thank you.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. All right, so moving right along, what do we have next? We have Nathan Gray, 21 Cottage Road, DEP number 050-TBD. A continued NOI to remove a woodshed, fabric-covered steel frame structure, and located within the wetland resource and restore wetland. In addition, construct new shed and greenhouse in 100-foot buffer and remodel existing shed located partially within wetlands. Mr. Gray, how are you doing?
Doing well. So Nathan Gray, 21 Cottage Road. And as you stated, I'm looking to remove two structures from what I now know as the wetlands. And we've gone over some plans, but I've since hired Tom Hughes to help me with the process of putting together this whole packet and such. And my neighbor's putting together a septic system design right next to the front part of our street, and something that we want to include in the proposal, even though I don't plan on doing the septic system right now. Septic system is right on the side of the river, pretty close to the wetlands, and also the shed is within the wetlands, half of it. So just trying to come up with a plan to remove those two things from kind of the buffer area, and working with an engineer to try to come up with a plan, because we're gonna have to raise, she's gonna have to raise up her area, which is gonna put the septic system, and I think that kind of doing it together, maybe putting the raising the two lands, so we don't have to put a retaining wall, kind of working together on that one would be ideal. So I did speak last meeting, and I just wanted to come back to let you know that I'm working on a plan further with an engineer, and it's going to be a more detailed plan. And just want to make sure I put everything in that plan. I plan on doing like a fence and such. So I just want to make sure that I can have a fully laid out plan to provide to you. So I just need a little bit more time with that, and as I wait for the other contractors to give me quotes and such.
Okay. So, does Tom do you have anything to kick in on this one?
Essentially what Nathan said. I'm compiling together the information that that Nathan already has, working with Steve Sawyer, who's an engineer who's got a lot of good experience with doing septics and doing plans in and around wetlands. So we can give you guys, you know, a fully detailed notice of intent plan that includes everything that Nathan is looking at doing over the next 3 years. So we don't just get him out of the sort of hot water he was in with the sheds, but also lay the groundwork so he stays within the ropes, you know, as he does additional things on the property over the next several years. So that will include, you know, the septic system, the fence he mentioned, and all of that. So we do need some time to put it together. We do have, the survey's been done, so we've just got to get the CAD file from the survey over to the engineer, and some test pits were done for the septic, but they may not have been official ones, so we may have to redo some test pits. But we've got a little bit of work to do, but given that it's the winter and you guys are dealing with the more emergency issue of the shed in the wetlands through the enforcement order, we'd like to make sure when we come through you guys with the notice of intent plan that it's, you know, really thorough, well detailed, and comprehensive on everything that Nathan's looking to do. And I understand from talking to Bill that some of the abutters may have gotten their mail too late to attend the last hearing. So the other reason to appear tonight was in case any abutters did log in, and if they had any comments or questions or concerns to relay, we certainly will take them into account as we move forward with putting together the plans.
Yeah, and on that part, I apologize. I think that I didn't really understand how that mail thing worked and how people have to be home and such. But I definitely encourage anyone to reach out to me and talk about the project as well if they have any questions.
Okay, great. Bill Holt, you want to throw anything in before we go to public comment, since that seems to be a driver of this particular appearance?
Yep. No, I have no problems with what they're preparing, you know, getting ready to prepare. So I think it's a good idea to get an engineer on board and get a detailed plan. So for some time to do that.
Well, then let's skip the commissioners and go out to the public. I don't see any hands raised on the sidebar here, but yeah, if you're here to speak on this as an abutter, you know, throw your hand in the air, or, you know, unmute yourself and chime in.
Don't see me.
No? All right, let's wait a minute then. Let's see what happens. Mary, I saw you throw your hand in the air. You got something on your mind?
Quick question. Do we need to amend the enforcement order or anything? Were there some deadlines that we put in the enforcement order that need to be amended to accommodate the change in schedule? I thought it said something about filing a notice of intent by this date.
Yeah, it might have. I can amend that if you are agreeable to that before we actually issue it.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. I just think just to keep track of the paper.
Maybe we should ask Tom how much time he thinks he needs for.
I can't give you a firm schedule till I get a little bit further in finding out the deal with whether we have to do perk tests or whether what was done is going to be adequate. But I will say, I think a notice of intent is filed. It's just not a very good notice of intent right now. So I guess technically we have one filed.
Yeah, there is one filed.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
There is.
so we met that deadline. Now we just need to work with you guys to make it so it's a passable and
Got it.
comprehensive notice of intent.
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Gray, do you can you see the attendance list on the side? Is there anybody that you thought was gonna speak up?
Well, I didn't anticipate anyone. I talk to people pretty regularly in my neighborhood. I think it might have just been an issue from a previous project that was down the street, and just people were trying to make sure that they were staying in the loop and being connected. But I do I spoke longer on the project, and we kind of went over things last time. So I just encourage people to look back at the YouTube video or wherever you have that archived to hear any more detail about the project, or like I said, reach out to me. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. Well then, I'm just gonna throw it open to the commissioners. You know, if you want to speak up, if there's anything you'd like to add or comment on or speak to.
I would just suggest that we continue it, not to the next meeting, but maybe the following meeting, if they
Yeah.
are going to need more time to develop a plan and get it into us before a meeting.
Yeah, do you want to go
that's
to
fine. Do we know the
first
date
meeting
of
in
that?
March?
Trying to find a date. I have a list here.
Yeah, this is this is the part where you put Kathy on the spot. Hey, Kathy, do you know what the meeting date is in March?
In March,
It'll be
been
probably.
here 4 days.
We can figure out.
I had to ask a
The
question.
third,
at some
I'm
point.
sorry,
Come on.
third week of March, correct?
Now, but probably the second week of March, I believe.
Okay. Second week of March would be the week of the 8th.
Oh, that's
March
that.
9th.
That might be vacation week too, though.
No, not in March. March is
Oh,
the
March,
long
right.
weekend.
I'm sorry. Right. Okay. Yeah.
We don't have vacations anymore, Bill. We all have vacations.
So I'd go with the second Tuesday in March.
Tuesday the 9th.
All right.
So the 8th,
So,
right? March
The 9th.
All right.
9th.
March
Sorry,
9th.
March 9th. Yep. Got
I'm
it.
a fan of you
So
doing
we-
second
Second
Tuesdays.
week.
What's that?
Hey, I'm seeing a 603 number with their hand in the air. Who is that?
Yeah, that's Bill Floyd.
There he is.
It doesn't seem to work though.
Put your hand down.
I don't know how.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, it looks like this is ready for continuance then. It sounds like things are moving along. Tom's got his he's got his work to do.
Move to continue to the March 9th meeting at 7 p.m.
Second,
Second that.
All right. Roll call. Benjamin.
Yep.
Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes, that would be fine.
All right, and I'm also going to vote in the affirmative. And thank you for coming in, Mr. Gray. Good luck.
Well needed after newborn child just came on New Year's, born here on Cottage Road in Newbury, home birth. So I need that sleep in that way.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
There's a lot of babies on this Concom call.
It's that COVID. Are we 9 months at the beginning of lockdown? I think, Brian.
We won't go there.
It is, Mr. Gray, it is outside our jurisdiction.
Way outside our jurisdiction. I'm going to move right along to the next thing in our jurisdiction. This is Christine Colstring at 1 Plumbush Down, DEP number 050-1332. An amended NOI to incorporate salt marsh restoration and upland landscaping into the order of conditions following the replacement of existing single-family home and associated site work. All
Good
right.
evening. All right.
Oh,
good evening.
Tom.
Yeah. So we finally worked everything out with DEP. They asked for us to put goals and a better definition of what constitutes success into our planting and monitoring plan. So, you know, as we've talked about, our goal is to get as much of that area vegetated as possible, and our success so is based on the areas of marsh we're uncovering with the structure and the area to 1.5 to 1 ratio underneath the structure. So that works out to be 690 square feet. They also wanted, okay, what is the contingency if it's impossible to get that 690 square feet? So I put into the plan that in the event that happens, that the applicant is obligated to have a wetland scientist prepare an alternate plan to increase the function of the salt marsh, basically, through some other way, and that proposal will be informed by the observations and monitoring that's occurred during the prior 2 growing seasons. So, so I think we're in a good spot with that. And then one of the things that I suggested that we would have the commission put as a condition would be that the monitoring would continue until a certificate of compliance was issued. And then there were a couple comments I had sent in to Bill on the draft. I know it was adapted from some inland stuff, so there's some stuff that didn't make a lot of sense. Bill, I don't know if you had a chance to look at what I sent you.
I haven't yet.
Kind of
Nope.
late.
I haven't. I will do it tomorrow.
Yeah, there were some perpetual conditions, and one thing is not using sodium chloride for snow removal. Frankly, I think in that location, it really doesn't do any harm. You know, a king high is going to kind of use to deal with snow on that site. So anyhow, so there were just some minor comments, sort of housekeeping things on that. But overall, you know, we're ready to have you guys vote on the amendment and move this forward. So the steps would be you approve the amendment. Bill sends the amendment into Mike Abel. After they review it and they agree with it, they withdraw their appeal, and then the amendment stands. And the amendment basically is worthless if they don't withdraw their appeal.
So I'm just looking through the planting table, you know, the amendment and the email that came in from DEP, and yep. You've got the language, right? It says the minimum goal is to increase salt marsh vegetation on site by 690 square feet.
Right.
What wiggle room do you have? You know, like, could you theoretically get 1,000 square feet of?
Yeah, let me share the screen if that's okay, and put up the.
Because you've got 1,600 plugs. You know, you've got the planting list. But what, like, potentially what could end up, like, if you've got a minimum goal of 690, 690, I assume, isn't also sort of your maximum goal.
So the exact amount of salt marsh we can produce is somewhat variable based on where the salt marsh line under the structure is, but it's an approximately 1,600 square foot area. So if we get salt marsh vegetation growing everywhere where salt marsh vegetation could grow under the structure, it could be as much as 1,600. So that's our goal. So during the first year of monitoring, we're going to do a baseline when things are planted. We're going to monitor it monthly. And if we get, you know, more than like 5% die off or an area of die off, we would replant those areas during the first year to try to have a successful successful result. I think we're going to end up with stuff in the core underneath the structure that's going to be, you know, somewhat wispy, maybe not growing as well during the second year. We would just monitor that. If there are things that we think we can do to make it better during that second year, we would do them. But essentially, we'd do a spring and a fall monitoring and document that we have the full 690 square feet. I also, as I said during our first hearing way back when, this site has such a sort of thriving vegetative system around it that I think we could not put any plugs on. And eventually, I think the salt marsh is going to move under the structure where it wants to be. We're just trying to help it along with the plugs.
Yeah, I mean, I follow where you're going with this, Tom. The thing that I'm just seeing that, you know, this whole process has been, you know, dial it in as tight as possible, right? You know, and you've got, you know, the 1,600 plugs listed in the one spot, and then you've got spacing 1 foot in another spot, and then the paragraph above says, you know, if 5% of the plantings die or 20 square feet die, then we're going to replant them. And then you've got a goal of 690 square feet, you know, as your, you know, what you're going for. And, it, you know, so like all those numbers don't really, you know, make clean arithmetic.
Yeah, so the 16 is basically this area that we estimate to be salt marsh, both under the structure and the area where we're removing the structure from an area that we are fairly certain will become salt marsh. And this area here where there's stairs going down into salt marsh, that's where the 1,600 comes from. The green area here is the area that will be under an elevated structure at a ratio of 1.5 to 1. This 1.5 height to 1 in. And this area here, when you add this up to this and this, you get your 690. So your 690 is this small sliver here where the stairs come out, the area that we uncover with the house, and this green area. I feel what you're going to really see in the end is you're going to see certainly dense salt marsh in this area and in this area. You're going to see areas under the structure where we're going to have dense salt marsh, and it's going to kind of fade as you go in and under the structure, and there's probably going to be fairly wispy stuff in the center. If we get thriving marsh under the entire thing, we'll end up with 1,600. And that's the goal, is we're gonna plant everything. But what ends up surviving is, you know, really going to be healthiest around the periphery and, you know, die off as you go under. So that's where all those numbers are, if that makes any sense.
Right, and it makes complete sense. And I think that this might benefit from that, you know, almost pained level of detail. You know, if the narrative sort of cross-reference the different pieces of the plan, you know, but again, that's just me. And maybe if DP is already giving you a thumbs up, they don't need it. You know, it just, you know, I'd hate to stumble into something again later, but I've said my piece. So I'll back off a little bit and go to the rest of the commission. Ben, what do you see? You want to comment? I'll take that as a no. No, Ben. Bill, Lord?
No, I have no comments.
Daniel?
Nothing.
Kevin?
I have nothing. I kind of missed the site walk on this. I've been behind on this project for a little bit. So, yeah, I have no further comments.
All right. Mary, what do you think? Am I being too dramatic about this?
No, I mean, it's a complicated little area and there's a lot going on. So it's a little bit hard to set success criteria because there are different success criteria for different portions of the site. But I think Tom understands what he means in the monitoring report, and hopefully he'll be the one that will be continuing to monitor it. And I think bottom line is we're just going to need to get it revegetated with native vegetation, whether it's by planting or recruitment from native vegetation that's already on site, and to maintain it once it's under occupation, to be able to maintain those areas vegetated as well. So basically, I'm okay with what's been proposed.
Okay. Peter?
I don't have anything additional. Thanks.
Okay. And Bill Holt, sorry I skipped you there, but
Sorry.
anything on your end?
Nope, I'm good with it.
All right. So yeah, we lost Ben. Ben, do you have anything to chime in?
I never really got a chance to look at this. That's the only thing I would say is that I understand everything going on with this parcel and the unique nature of this particular filing. But again, I always like to be able to have time to actually review this stuff. So when it comes in the day of a meeting, it's hard to keep up with it.
Yeah, agreed.
I apologize. We got comments back from DEP, reacted to them, got comments, reacted to them. So things kind of iteratively occurred since the last meeting. We've just been trying to close it out. So normally in a normal project progression, I'd love to give this to you a week ahead and have it be static. But
yep, it's an odd one, and I think all along there's the dichotomy of what the commission thought and what needed to happen from an administrative or legal perspective. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm just being potentially over dramatic. So I'm not gonna, put my foot down or stand in the way or anything like that. And, to Mary's point, you're gonna be keeping track of your own stuff, obviously. So you know what you mean when you are looking at things. So as long as DEP is okay with this, yeah. So what's our order of operations at this point? I know we covered it before, but to make a motion, we should probably go through that again.
So can I suggest it would be that you would vote to issue an amended order of conditions. One of the conditions should be that, and that amended order of conditions needs to cite both this restoration plan and the restoration narrative that was provided. And one of the conditions should be that the monitoring, as outlined in that report, does need to continue spring and fall until a certificate of compliance is issued. And then any other conditions that are related to the amendment, to the plantings or the survival, et cetera, that you feel are necessary. Work that into that decision and vote to issue it and have that sent to Mike Abel at DEP.
So was anybody writing that down who wants to make that motion?
Can I just make the motion?
I think we need a motion to amend the order of conditions. I make a motion to amend the order of conditions to incorporate the new planting plan and monitoring plan that has been presented with the dates that Bill can include. And I don't have any other special conditions.
Second.
Before you vote, can I ask that you put in the condition on the monitoring continuing until the COC is issued?
And the monitoring continues until the COC is issued, yes.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. We've got 3 seconds, so that's clean. All right, roll call. Benjamin. No. Ben, you got unmute.
Did unmute that time. Yes. Good. Great grand.
Bill Lord is the only one allowed to thumbs up the screen.
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes.
Peter,
absolutely.
and I will also second Peter's absolutely. Good. So hopefully this puts this one to bed.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience with this one.
Yeah, thank you for the patience. That was a big one. All right, let's move right along. I assume there's we don't need to worry about any of the like giving you the script about deals and all that. So, all right, what are we up to now? We are up to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Parker River National Wildlife Refuge, 6 Plum Island Turnpike, and RDA to implement salt marsh and coastal habitat management and resilience actions. All right, is this you, Greg? All right, the floor is yours. Step right up.
All right. Thank you. I've been on the edge of my seat here all night. Thank you all for being here. This is the, I believe, the third hearing from the continuance from December 8th, a technical continuance on January 9th, maybe, and then here we are on the 26th. As you know, I'm on behalf of actually the University of New Hampshire. I've put together an RDA for a salt marsh management proposal within the National Wildlife Refuge with our partners at Parker River. This is to conduct runneling at 3 pools within the refuge as outlined in the materials that I included as an attachment to the RDA application. At the December 8th meeting, we had a presentation followed by a very lively Q&A session that led to some questions about maybe pacing ourselves and opting for a continuance for me to reach out once again to the state. I had in fact met with the state prior to the RDA. It outlined the proposal concept in an informal way. After our December 8th meeting, I did communicate with Rachel Freed from DEP. She felt pretty comfortable with the project as described to her. She did not have the application in her hands and all the details. After the January 5th continuance, I received a call back to a call from January 3rd from Rachel Freed, and we had a very detailed conversation now that she had the full package and attachments and appendices. She articulated to me that she felt very comfortable with the project, that the impacts were in fact de minimis, and that while it is a gray area with respect to working in wetland areas, that she was generally comfortable with the project and encouraged me to proceed with the process. I do not have that in writing. That is just merely a conversation, and that is why I'm relaying it to this commission in this format. Therefore, I'm looking for the commission to render their decision on the merits of the project as described, and hope that we can get to a resolution this evening. I'm happy to provide any, field any other questions or concerns, but I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Bill Holt, anything new on your end?
No, I would suggest that we could issue a negative determination with conditions. I offered some potential conditions to the commission. I don't know if you've all reviewed them. If you have any comments, if you want to add or take away from any of them, if you want to discuss those, I think I'll leave it up to the commission to decide how they go forward from here. So,
Mr. Holt, if I can interrupt and just say, I meant to say in my notes, I am happy to accept any and all conditions the commission wishes, to keep them involved in any and all ways that they want to be. And that was actually discussed with Rachel Freed as well, and who agreed that would be a great way forward. Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine. So I guess if the commission would like to discuss, if they reviewed the conditions I wrote up, it was just the first stab at it. So if you want to either include or not include them, I have no issues.
All right. Ben, did you have a chance to look at anything?
I missed the initial discussion in December on this project. So I'm pretty much, everything I've seen in the application and the conditions presented by Bill makes sense to me, and I don't have any problems with anything, but I'm not particularly an informed participant at the moment.
Okay. Bill Lord?
From what I remember, I was comfortable with all the stuff that we had talked in the conditions.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I thought Bill's list of conditions was a good one.
Okay. Kevin?
No, it's just rereading through them, and I agree. I think it's what
Okay.
we've discussed before.
All right. Mary?
How about that? I am abstaining from this project. From this project. Thanks.
And Peter?
Bill, I think the draft looks great. It's just a matter of filling in your blanks.
Yep.
Yeah, my own thoughts, looking through Bill's things, I'm a little bit, I don't want to put, the project in a box, if you will, because it's sort of experimental restoration thing, and sometimes, unexpected things happen, I don't know, like, for instance, we've got the, one of Bill's suggested conditions has to do with, maximum number of project staff on site. But, I don't know if, UNH would send a class down, and have 25 kids tromping around out there, or something to that effect, COVID or not COVID related.
I'd be comfortable with any limitations that you suggest. We have no interest in bringing more than a maximum, probably 3 staff members to the site to do the work. We do have a component of the project that is, I guess, somewhat of an engaged scholarship or public involvement, but we're proposing that at one of the 3 sites that is viewable from the road by design. That would be a sort of a citizen science birding component where they don't have boots in the marsh. We're very sensitive to that and do not want to have that problem.
Okay. Did you happen to see the suggested conditions that Bill had?
I don't think I gave them to Greg. I apologize.
I didn't, but I'm really quite comfortable with the commission's wisdom on this. And the goal here is conservation, and we like to move forward with the project, and we're I guess I'll speak for my group. We're open to your suggestions.
Okay, I have one question. Okay. One of my conditions was the work would be completed between such a date, such a date. I just don't know what dates you would, or the commission would rather him be out there. What's the best times to be doing this type of work?
So the timing works quite well right now. We have no interest in being there in early growing season. So we'd want to be, probably conducting the work in the late winter, early spring before plants start to get moving. We have no interest in having footprints in the marsh. So our best case scenario is to work in the spring thaw and then start monitoring once the plant community comes back up. And as I mentioned at least I think it was probably the December meeting that we had a little bit more time to talk, the creation of these micro runnels, if you will, can be completed pretty much within one tidal cycle, or in a worst case scenario, a tidal cycle per site, probably more like 2 of them within one tidal cycle. So it's no equipment. It's just 2 or 3 people with hand tools. They're in, they're out, so that we don't get our boat hung up in the flats. So it's a very in and out kind of project.
Okay. Well, Bill, it looks like your conditions, they're all sort of repeating what he's saying anyway. So beautiful. Let's put this one to bed.
Do we have to fill in all the should we read this in the meeting, all the
Wouldn't hurt.
and then do we have to fill in all the blanks with exact numbers before we put a vote to this, or can we leave that to Bill?
I think if we sort of read the generics, he can fill in the dates. If we say between date certain and date certain, which will be, we can give him that leeway.
And I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I think we should, some of the bigger ones like the dates, we should probably fill in maximum number of people and maybe the length.
Yeah.
And maybe Greg can answer those questions real quickly, and we can just read through them real quick, just so they're on record, and then vote on it.
I think that's what we
All right, do it, Kev.
We need to do that for the DEP, Brian. I think.
So, Greg, what is the latest date you think you would want access or need access?
I think we need to be in and out of there well before April 15th.
Okay. And maximum number of staff, you already said it was like 3, but if we said
I
like
said
4,
3, but we always love to have an undergraduate student.
Yeah.
So maybe just
so if we said 5, I think the commission would be comfortable with that.
we'd love to have somebody in the boat to tell us that we're running aground while we're out on the marsh.
And probably another important one was the maximum length that these runnels would be.
Yeah, I believe in the materials that I put forth, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think that it was inside of 10 feet, but I maybe just just to be on the safe side to keep it to 15. But I'm pretty sure that each one of those is under 10 feet.
Okay.
And if you'd like, I mean, we could leave that open and I can, communicate it back. But I measured it in Google Earth based on the RTK elevations that I took. So I'm pretty sure it's inside of 10, but safe side would be 15.
Okay. I think scrolling through, I think that's all we need.
Kevin.
Yes.
Well, I think we need depth of runnels.
Oh yeah.
The depth and width is articulated in the attachment. It's a 6-page explanation of the process, and
I think
also,
it was. I can take it off that if that's okay.
All right. Yep.
And it includes all the monitoring parameters that we are promising to provide for a minimum of 2 years. In fact, they'll probably go to 3 to 5 years.
And finally, were the proposed tools in that application as well, Mr. Moore or Dr. Moore?
Yeah, it's pretty much a gas-powered post pounder that we modify to adapt to a kind of for lack of a better term, sort of an angle iron piece. We may use that. We also used, and I don't remember the terms I used when I used to be a landscaper years ago, but I called it a tamper. I don't think that's a real term, but it's like a big post with a flat thing on the bottom, and it just, you bang it down. And beyond that, we may use a spade, but that's the extent of it.
Should you need to refuel that gas-powered equipment, where do you intend to do that?
That's a great question. It actually has a 1 gallon tank on it. It's a 4-stroke, no oil, and that thing will run for 3 days before you have to put any fuel into it. And
All right, so not bringing fuel out in the field with you.
it'll be fueled on land before we take it out, and we don't bring any fuel with us.
Perfect.
Thanks for asking that.
That stipulation in. Sounds good.
Kevin, do you want to read in any of the other ones?
Do we need to read through all of them for the record, or?
Yeah, I think, it's good practice.
Okay. Does that mean I have to do it?
I'll do it.
You started it.
Want me to do it?
No, I can do it. It's fine. That's fine.
You're gonna be skipping meetings because of the baby. Now we're gonna put you on the spot.
Greg Moore from UNH is the applicant, will be getting a special use permit as permission from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the proposed project. A copy of the special use permit shall be provided. The work shall be completed between the dates of the acceptance of this application and April 15th, 2021. No heavy equipment shall be used to construct the runnels. Hand tools such as a spade, tamper, only small motorized equipment can be used, not to be fueled on site. A maximum number of 5 project staff members shall be at the site to complete the proposed work. The applicant shall provide the Conservation Commission with before and after photos of the runnel locations taken during their installation. If possible, the location shall be geolocated using GPS. The runnels shall be a maximum length and maximum depth as according to the provided plan. The Conservation Commission shall be provided with all monitoring reports, project progress reports, and final analysis of success or failure of the project. And the applicant shall notify the Conservation Commission immediately should any issues such as erosion affecting the wetland resources occurs. And that is it.
And
right.
I can provide Mr. Holt with the actual model number of that gas-powered instrument, if it's for what it's worth. After the fact, to be read into the record. We own it, so I can give you the details on it.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so, Kevin, that was a great job. Now that you're not going to be here for a couple of meetings, if Ben wants to, since you obviously you've got a great speaking voice, we can make you the co-chair. Take Ben off the. But we won't do that till you're not here.
Let's say I was getting sick of being co-chair. I'm glad somebody's going to miss some meetings.
All right. So with those special conditions understood and read into the record, who would like to make a motion to, make this happen?
I'll move to issue a negative determination with the conditions as read by Chairman Stromsky. Commission member Stromsky.
Seconded.
Great. All right, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Mary.
She's abstaining.
Yeah, she's abstaining, sorry. Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. Excellent. All right, well then we will look forward to seeing how you do.
Great. Thank you very much for all your consideration. Look forward to reporting you the details. And Bill, I'll be in touch with that model number. I don't have it on hand.
All right, thank you.
I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Moving right along. Kevin Whitney of K&R Construction Company, LLC, 84 Boston Road, DEP number 0501337. A continued NOI to construct a 7,400 square foot building with 2 paved access driveways, paved parking and access on 3 sides of the building, and a gravel storage area to the rear and side of the building. All right. Where's, are they here? There he is.
I am
There's
here.
Kevin.
Yep. I'm here as well. Chris York with Millennium Engineering.
Oh, where are you, Chris? I didn't see you on your. Oh, there you are. You got 2 spots.
I do.
All right, Chris. So why don't you bring us up to speed on what's new?
So we met with the planning board last Wednesday. Went pretty well. They're starting to draft up a decision, starting that process. Plans haven't changed since the last hearing. I was not here, obviously. I know Kevin was. He kind of gone over the plan I created for the commission, showing kind of locations of all of the trailers where they'll be stored and there's materials. And the truck where the trucks will be turning in and out of the site. I have that plan again. I can share my desktop screen. I can share that. I've kind of updated it a little bit to add some dimensions and some calcs on there.
That way.
All right. So if I was on at the last meeting, but I was told that there was some concerns about that we hadn't moved any of the walls any further away from the wetlands. Since we came to the first meeting, we've moved the walls back a little bit, kind of as far as we really can in spots. So I added some dimensions. So out here, the wall is 18 feet from the wetlands. From the previous meeting, I had moved this wall back probably about 4 or 5 feet further away from the wetlands. And then we're about 16 feet to this wet flag. And then the closest pinch point were 13 feet. That's the back face of the wall. And then this area I kind of had pushed it back a little bit, so there's a much more of a buffer in this zone, in this area here. And again, we show locations of where all the trails will be on site, is kind of locations of some materials, some more equipment. And this general area will be used for truck turnaround, getting in and out of the site, getting in and out of the building, coming, kind of accessing this side of the property as well to access the trailers. So the other thing I did for this plan is I added a table up top. So the site is 2.28 acres. So we are proposing to keep 4/10 of an acre undisturbed. And we're proposing another 8/10 of an acre, which will be loamed and seeded ultimately. So we're at about 2.28 acre site, and over half of it's going to be ultimately remain green space. So I wanted to kind of add that to the plan as well. So other than that, not much has changed on the plans, but we kind of take any questions from you guys.
Okay. And then Mr. Whitney, do you want to add anything in?
Well, I know that there was questions from the board about why we needed this much space, and is there any way to reduce the space? So I did ask Chris to put those dimensions in, and I want you to take note that those dimensions are to the wall. That's not actually to the paved surface or the gravel surface, because the wall and the guardrail is still about another 4 to 5 feet in depth. So we're still in most areas we're at least 20 feet still from the wetland. And it is an industrial zoned property, and we are only using 48% of the total property for business use. The rest is remaining either open space or green space. Yeah, we're here to field any questions and hopefully do whatever we can to move on to the next step here.
All right. Bill Holt, anything new on your end?
No, I just took a look at this. That looks like they moved it back a little, so it's up to the commission to decide whether or not it's a big enough buffer. So I have really nothing else to add. I think everything else was answered before, so all the other questions are answered.
So then going to the commission, I'm going to step out of order here. And Mary, I want to go straight to you. You had some of the stronger thoughts at the end of our last meeting. If you want to re-engage with them now.
You may have stepped away at the end of the.
Yeah, I think we lost Mary there.
Let me
text
her and tell her that she needs to be back at the computer.
Well, I'm assuming the rest of you won't have anything to say, but I can double check that. Ben, Dan, Bill, Kevin, Peter, anything?
Actually, I do have a couple things.
Oh, all right. Have at it.
Yep. So this plan's a little bit different than what planning has. So I just need to, for a definition, it indicates trailers. Are these mobile trailers? Are these stationary trailers?
Oh no, these are like you've seen like a tractor trailer that hauls like dirt and gravel. It's a trailer dump. We have a couple of those, and then like a trailer that you haul equipment on.
Okay.
And the trailers like that.
So there would be 6 trailers stored on site?
Some days 2 or 3 would leave to go to work, to do jobs for the day and then come back.
So what would be the maximum number of trailers stored on site?
That's as many as we own right there. We own 6. So that would be the maximum that we're planning right now.
But would there be more? I'm drilling down here. What would be the maximum number of vehicles stored on site, trailers?
I think that's the maximum I could really store in that area outside there. I could put more inside the building though, if I had to.
Okay. And planning was told that there wouldn't be any materials stored outside. And this plan is demonstrating that there'll be pipe fittings, castings, and other hard materials stored outside.
Oh, I thought she was asking about like sand and bark mulch and stuff like that.
Well, that's one type of material that can be stored outside. Yeah. This is another type of material, so I think that needs to be clarified.
Oh, okay. Yes.
From a planning standpoint. Okay.
Yeah, so we were thinking there may be small storage, not large storage, like leftover parts from a job site, maybe a few pieces of pipe. We're not thinking like an extensive amount, though. No.
Yeah, I see. And I'm actually very curious to see what Mary's thoughts are on an appropriate buffer for a wetland for an industrial site like this with a sensitive area so close. So I'm hoping Mary's back on.
Mm-hmm. Fair. And it should be bear in mind, all the drainage comes back to the catch basins and does not drain over the wall.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Dan, I see your hand waving. What?
I mean, just a couple of things. When I see the trailers there, wasn't there a snow storage thing beyond the trailers? How's that going to work?
Well, typically when we plow, we actually have to move each trailer at our current facility. We move each trailer as we plow, clean off on the trailers, clean around them, under them. And yeah, the snow would be moved as needed.
Down where the cursor is at this point.
That's where one of the snow storage areas is. Yes.
So, I'm not real savvy about stormwater systems, but there's a operation and maintenance plan for that stormwater system. Is that correct?
Yep.
Is there any sense of how often those manholes will need to be cleaned, addressed?
They're intended to be cleaned 2 to 4 times per year. Inspected 2 to 4 times per year and cleaned out when they start to fill up. The sumps fill up. The baked and constructed wetland itself is meant to be inspected.
I mean, the last meeting we had on this project, I kind of, I understand there's a need to have some gravel area for certain uses, but, I'm just thinking that might contribute to the manholes getting filled up. Vehicles coming in with mud. I mean, it just sort of, I kind of wonder if there's some need to kind of monitor this to actually determine how often the pits need to be cleaned. And then the only other thing I got is just, I think the buffer we're left with here, I will say I noted that your cut line and erosion control have been moved closer to the wall. That's good. But this is as tight as I think we've ever seen anything like this. And I mean, even just like if you could get rid of the knuckle in that wall, you'd get closer to 20 feet instead of 13 feet at that point. I think it would be a big improvement from our standpoint. But that's about all I got.
All right, thanks, Dan. Hey, Mary, you back?
Yes, sorry about that, bad connection. Chris, can you tell me what the distance is between the wetland side of the wall and your limit of work erosion control barrier? You showing that as 10 feet?
Let me find a different plan that shows the silt fence. This plan. So I get it's hard to see the silt fence through here. I still show this buffer zone of plantings through here as well. But the silt fence line's about 4 to 5 feet behind the wall. It's outside. Looks like it's outside the 10-foot buffer, the 10-foot wetland buffer zone line.
Okay.
So it's about probably 12 feet from the wetland in here.
Okay.
That pulls away a little bit further in here.
And so that's the area you're anticipating is the area of disturbances from the back of the wall to the silt fence line. That 4 or 5 feet from the back of the wall is a temporary disturbance.
Temporary, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And how is that to be restored after construction?
A combination of the buffer zone plantings and just we'll put back some, clean up, any mess back there we'll clean up and kind of rake up and clean it up with any clean soils, clean materials.
So is there a specific planting plan for because I think we discussed previously that the supplemental plantings along the wetland edges isn't really needed there, but you do need to have some kind of restoration plan between the silt fence and the back of the wall. That 4 or 5 feet, whether it's just, going to be seeded or if it's going to be planted with woody vegetation. I don't think we have that information.
No, ultimately it'll be seeded. It won't be seeded back there.
Just seeded.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is the lip on the wall itself? How much elevation is there from the top of the wall to grade on the project side?
I could check. I think it's about 6 inches. Like, well, don't check the detail. Where's the wall detail? It shows it flat in here. It's pitched flat, but it's pitched back towards the pavement, or back towards the gravel. And I can add a lip on it if you want. I can kind of have it 6 inches above grade.
Yes. I think that would be helpful to have some kind of even more than 6 inches, some kind of a lip to prevent the gravel from just going over the wall with vehicles and equipment moving around.
Okay, that's doable. I can do that.
What's the possibility to Dan's point about eliminating that pinch point where it comes to the closest point of the wall to the wetland?
I'd have to talk to Kevin about that. I know he's.
So the 13 foot, the 13 foot spot, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you thinking? Just soften that corner so it's not a sharp corner and make it more, I don't know, turn.
Yeah, if we can make it more in line with the 18 and 16 on the other side, so that it's more consistent and not a pinch point right there.
We could pull that away from the wetland a little bit, but my main concern is the corner of the north corner of the building there is keeping, I believe we had a 40-foot distance there, Chris.
Yeah.
It's trying to keep that 40 feet, because if that gets too narrow, it eliminates the useful use of that end of the building.
It looks like you can keep the corner the same and even
Yeah,
out that wall there.
I can kind of round that off.
Yeah,
it gives a little bit more breathing room right there, because what happens is, it's still pretty tight for construction, and I know you can construct those block walls in a pretty small area if you're careful, but if there's any amount of tree clearing needed, then the disturbance quickly gets much wider than 4 or 5 feet. And despite the siltation fence and, it's quite possible to have more disturbance during construction that needs to be restored. So giving yourself a little bit more room will minimize the potential for that to happen and limit the amount of clearing that needs to happen between the silt fence and the back of the wall there.
Okay.
I think that's the main concern that everybody seems to have, is just the proximity there. And I think to give yourself a little bit more room and make it constructible without having, without having the possibility of direct impact to the wetland during construction is what the concern is.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. We can do that.
Through Brian, Mary, what would be your true comfort zone for this project? Because there's a lot going on in this amount of space, and this has been a concern of planning. So from a conservation standpoint, is 16, 18 a comfortable number? Is 20 a comfortable number? I mean, I need to rely on your experience and understanding of this particular site for that.
Well, it has to do with constructability and what is being proposed. And so, I've seen these block walls constructed pretty close to wetland edges in certain situations, and it can be done with some sensitivity. There's not a magic number, and obviously more is better. But I see this as ultimately a project that's probably approvable by DEP in terms of any review that they would have directly on appeal. So I think that we want to create a situation that makes it so that it's very, very clear that it can be constructed without direct impact to the wetland. And I think that giving yourself, right now they're giving themselves 10 feet to the limit of work. And it's still pretty tight, but it's doable. A little bit more there would be better, and they can pull that silt fence a little bit further away from the wetland edge and give themselves more room there. So, you know, this is a constructability question and not necessarily what's good for the wetland long-term, because having a contractor yard next to the wetland is not good for the wetland long-term. We know that, but it's an industrial site and that's what it's zoned for. So I'm looking at it in terms of what are the impacts during construction.
Zoning doesn't, Mary, am I missing that? I didn't think, I haven't read anything in the WPA where zoning changed any regulations.
No, but that's the project that's before us. I mean, because it's zoned for that, that's what.
Yeah, but I think that, does it matter if this is a residential project or an industrial project when you're talking about impacts and their proximity to a wetland?
Well, to make it to try to meet the project purpose, it does, you know, if the project purpose is industrial and in order to meet the project purpose, they need to do a certain amount of work.
I guess where I would go is that I totally appreciate like the detail and the thought that's been gone into this, and like the explanation of the logistics and why it's designed the way it is. But when I look at this and the amount of impact and what's planned on a lot this size that has these wetlands, amount of wetlands on it, I feel like there is perhaps too much proposed on this lot. That the use is kind of overstepping what you can do without an impact to a wetland. I'm very uncomfortable with saying that there's not an impact to the wetland.
Yep, and I can understand that point of view too.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. And I think that we've kind of consistently, a number of us have been saying it needs to be pushed back some. And I'm trying to say is that I completely understand the logistics of why it looks like it does. I don't know that. I mean, the logistics are what the logistics are, but then you know, what we have to say about the wetland is what we have to say about the wetland. And if there's a tension there that we can't resolve, then we can't resolve it.
Right. It's just really hard to quantify what the difference in impact is between a 15-foot and a 20-foot setback, you know.
I think that's where I'm more like, do I think it, like when I look here and I see that, you know, that it's bound up, they're bounding so close to the wetlands on most sides of the wetland that closely, you know, within 20 feet, then for me, you know, and then the buffer is getting taken out to do the area on the upper right, you know. So yeah, I mean, there really isn't an undisturbed buffer area left.
Nope.
On this site. It's construction straight around. So that hasn't changed throughout the course of the project.
Yep.
That's really all I have to say about it.
Okay, Mary, was that the end of your line of thought?
Was there one more thing? Was there a planting plan? I don't recall, for the basin itself.
Yes.
The stormwater basin. Okay.
Yeah, it's on one of the detail sheets. Yep.
Okay. I'll have to review that again.
If I may, as far as constructability goes, if it makes the board more comfortable, I mean, we can go with more than the standard silt fence or erosion stock. We could do a combination. I mean, we've had projects where we've built walls like this right along, because I do site work, right along wetlands, and done extensive work near wetlands and replicated wetlands. And we've done silt fence with multiple stacked even erosion socks up against it, just to reinforce it and to protect the wetland even more. And then, you know, we'd seed and do erosion fabric so that you're even eliminating the chance of any washout and sediment entering the wetland. So there's definitely construction methods that can definitely be done to take care of these issues.
Okay, well, appreciate that. You know, I'm sure we'll take you up on that at some point. Mary, yeah, just were you, was that the end of your, or do you have a little more?
No, that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, the thing on my mind, you know, I keep looking at the trailer images, you know, the proposed 6 trailers and where they would park. And, you know, to oversimplify it, it feels like they're really spread out, you know, and they're really, you know, taking up a lot of space. And just from a parking perspective, if there was a way to tighten them up, would that do us any good with tucking the wall in? You know, and then I know we talked about the 40 foot in the back between the building and the wall, but did we discuss the front parking lot? Is that a required distance, a required size and shape, or is that a preferred size and shape? Can we push the building toward the road? I'm not remembering if we had that conversation.
We cannot push it towards the road any further. It's a 50-foot front setback. Or 40-foot front setback. We're right up against the front setback. So regardless of whether there's a parking lot there or not out front, there's no room to push the building any further towards the road.
Okay. And then the other thing too is that looking at the, you know, the equipment parking in the back and the you know, the job leftover storage site, you know, those are both closer to the wetland than, you know, they maybe could be. You know, I was wondering about, you know, if we rearrange sort of the trailer parking, maybe we wouldn't have sort of the you know, the project leftovers sort of piling up, you know, right in the corner up against the wetland wall. Because, you know, to Mary's point earlier, you know, if you guys are, you know, always putting something back there, you know, at some point things are going to fall over the wall. You know, just it'll happen. If we can move that somewhere else, it's not so flush with the wetland, that might be helpful.
Yeah, we could.
But again, I don't know enough about trailer driving and trailer parking to know what I'm asking is, you know, geometrically possible.
That is possible. I could park a trailer over there and move those items to another area. That would be fairly incidental.
But ultimately, we still do need this area for, you know, when trucks come in, they do need this area to be able to turn around and back into the building. So we could take these out and move them somewhere else, but we do still need this.
It's the turning radius.
Yes, exactly.
Right. You guys had that on one of the other sheets, and that was helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if there was a way to stack the parked trailers somewhat tighter somewhere, I feel like that would create space that maybe would be helpful. You know, the 2 especially just sort of out there on their own. You know, if this was, you know, an F-150 or a regular work truck, you just back them in the space between the other 2 trailers. You know, and you'd create all that empty space up there. But again, I don't know enough about trailers and how they park and drive and whatnot to know if that is, you know, a realistic way to look at that.
Oh, so Brian, so the 2 trailers that are sticking out, that is to illustrate. So if you wanted, like that trailer that's sticking out, that can be backed in between the other 2. That's to illustrate how far you'd have to pull out and then turn if you weren't all of them at one time. Yeah, that's why we put that like that. So you could see how much you have to pull out and then turn. That's why we need that much room.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I didn't know that you misunderstood.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, again, all my questions seem to come back to driving trailers.
Does that make more sense?
Maybe
Now that you see how they pull out and you got to get past one to make your turn.
Yeah, so then what if, can you turn them 90 degrees? Would that still work? Would you have to be so far back into the site if you pivoted a little bit? Or does that, again, same thing about not knowing how they drive.
Yeah. We've played with the layout over and over again. Like I said, if we need to, currently most of the wall is 18, 16. There's that one 13-foot tight spot. If it was a big deal to the board to, 2 or 3 feet there, if that really helped with making a determination, we could tweak that a little bit. We didn't bother with that. I thought the board was looking for more of a larger change, which it doesn't really work if we make that big of a change. And I didn't think we were designing something outside the normal scope that the board sees. I thought this was kind of a standard. But
yeah, the square building and the wetland thing, in a manner of speaking, we're used to. It's the way that you're using the lot that's thrown us. I think I can say, we're used to seeing static things. We're not necessarily used to seeing lots used in a mobile fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Dan that I don't recall seeing a plan that was this aggressive with the buffer.
Well, currently I'm doing the construction for the storage facility next door. And he actually has 3 retaining walls very similar to this, right along the limit of work.
I missed that one. I don't know how close they were to the original wetland, but I believe you.
So does anybody have any feelings on the board about where they are with this and what they might like to see happen next? I'm at a bit of a loss myself. I don't feel comfortable making, I don't feel well informed enough about how to judge this. And again, as I said a few times already, I just, I don't know how to read, traffic and the flow of trucks, to meet Mary's point about, if this is appropriate and constructible and all those other things.
Can I just ask
Yeah,
a
Dan.
question? I wasn't going to go into this because it's pretty clear that, the design here is because this is the only thing you can have to meet the need. But is that frontage on the building waivable? In other words, if you just spin that whole building, losing some of the front parking, being closer than the required distance to the road, and then the whole thing would have a straight shot into the building, backing in. Oftentimes you don't think of the waive. It may not be waivable. I don't know. Peter.
Yeah, Peter, you want to talk to us about what you think, is arguably waivable and what isn't?
That hasn't been proposed. So we'd have to, take a look at that. If that's, if the applicant submits that, then that would be something, the board would look at and, we'd consider.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go to the zoning board for that. And that requires a hardship, and I'm not sure he'd qualify for a hardship. He might, but you'd have to make the argument.
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank at the moment. So anybody who has anything to say, feel free to step in and take the floor. This one's,
Well, I think
tough.
that our mission here is not to design the project for them, but to react to the plan that's before us and whether or not we feel that it adequately protects wetlands. So, you know, there is a judgment call here because we're talking about, we don't have a bylaw that has a 25-foot no disturb zone or something, that it doesn't exist. So we don't have the same kind of tools that you might have if we did have that extra level of protection, which is another reason to try to push to get that bylaw through. But I think regardless of how the trucks move, because we can't regulate that, we're only regulating, we're only able to react to the layout that's shown here and whether it can be constructed to meet the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act. If there are things that they can further do to minimize the potential for impact, like getting a waiver to move, the building, that's something that we could request that they consider, but they don't necessarily have to go that route. They can just request that we vote on the plan that's before us. And so I think that's what we're going to be forced to do ultimately, is how does everybody feel about this plan? That they can feel comfortable seeing whether it can be constructed without impacting the wetland or not. And does it minimize, the impacts to the maximum extent feasible, given the, what the project purpose is?
Right. Yeah, I take your point, Mary. And that's the thing, about the way the trailers move, is that the answer to that question has a lot to do with the usage of the site, and I can't visualize. I'm having a lot of trouble dealing with understanding how the usage would work, and these knuckles and pulling the boundaries in a little bit. That's where my trouble is coming from. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm more interested in having there be a hard and fast barrier between the work and the wetland than concerned about 2 or 3 foot difference. I don't think that makes a significant difference to the wetland. I think making sure that there's no opportunity for materials, equipment, or slumpage or anything from this wall to impact the wetland. So I think that, from my perspective, the protection has to come from that, from having that wall protect the wetland from all the activities that's going to occur at the site. And, whether or not what they end up doing on the site is going to change over time, and whether or not they're the same owner over time, we don't know. So we just have to make sure that it can be, the layout is going to provide some long-term protection for that wetland.
Would a fence on top of the wall help protect?
Yep.
In the lip that they were proposing, actually raise that wall up, make the lip on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can round
Some
that,
sort of barrier so that coffee cups and everything else doesn't just automatically get thrown over the wall.
and they can probably still try to round that pinch point a little bit and try to get a little bit further back in that spot.
Yes, because I think there may be some constructability issues right at that pinch point.
That's what I want to reiterate what Bill Holt just said, that raising the wall above grade and having some sort of fence on top of it, I think would solve a lot of Mary's issues and quite frankly, my issues with how close it is to wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We do have there is a guardrail there too, as well. So obviously vehicles can't get any closer than, any closer to the wetlands. It's
Yeah, my concern is more snow removal. I could see
snow
very
plowing,
easily
yeah.
just plow it right over the edge, and that'd be
Yeah.
an easy way to remove snow and everything else that's on the paved
Yeah,
area in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So
There's gotta be
some
a
way
way
to
to
prevent
prevent
that is something is what I was thinking.
Yes.
So the typical wall block is 2 feet tall. So if the wall blocks extended another block course 2 feet above the pavement or gravel, that could actually work in lieu of the guardrail even. That would be a concrete guardrail at that point. And that would keep any sediment, snow, and it's the guardrail all at the same time. I mean, if that would please the board, I'm sure we could make something work like that.
Where would the snow storage be? Where do you plow it to? Where would you plow it to?
Believe we have a plan.
Yeah, let me find it.
Oh, you just went by it.
Yep.
Right there.
Right. No, we got snow storage out front for the front parking lot, and then we got some more snow storage over on the other side of the parking lot.
Is that practical given where your trailer storage is going to be?
We'll just have to move the trailers as we do snow removal. We have to do that now at our current facility. It's really just the nature of it. You have to move the trailers to clean them off, even to be used for the next work day.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see some kind of restoration plan for the, between the wetland edge and the wall height being at least 2 feet above grade with a fence on top.
What kind of fencing do you prefer?
Solid fence, like a stockade fence or something. That would be a barrier.
Hey, Mary, rather than fencing, would it be just as easy to put another row of block on top?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're doing it anyway, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah. And they don't need the guardrail.
Just because, yeah.
So
just at least then the aesthetics would be consistent. Fence on top might look silly. But, another stack of blocks would look the same.
Or you could do construction, chain link fence or whatever kind of fence, doesn't have to be.
So let's maybe reframe that question. How high do we want this to go? Like, do you want a 6-foot total barrier above grade? Do you want an 8-foot total barrier above grade? And 2 foot at the bottom with the cinder or
maybe Bill could weigh in on this. I don't know. I mean, just, high enough to prevent somebody from taking up, plowing snow and dumping with a bucket over the top of the wall, or having it be an attractive place to just throw things. So.
Yeah, you probably want 6 feet minimum, as a height. So either the 2-foot wall and a 4 or 5 foot fence or 6-foot fence would certainly prevent anything from being thrown over it. So it's just.
I just think, a combination of whatever it is that's 6 feet high. But that there be a lip to prevent the gravel from migrating.
Yeah. And also runoff. Runoff will definitely stay on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds okay. My only comment on the 6-foot idea is, in a manner of speaking, I'm 6 feet, give or take. Ben's 6 feet. Kevin, how tall are you? You're pretty close. But just so if you really felt like it, if you're in a mood, right, 6 feet is, it's not going to prevent anything from going over. It's just going to make your point that you don't want it to go over. So are we trying to be more psychological, or are we trying to be more actual in preventing things from going over the top?
It's going to prevent, windblown stuff, and
trash.
Minimize the amount of trash and then minimize the potential for debris to go over the wall.
Okay.
You know, falling off trucks
Just wanted to-
and whatever, you know, just. So it'll have to be maintained,
Okay.
you know, so that it's clear in the back. But maybe, you know, we make a motion to request that the applicant come back with a plan that, you know, includes these things that we've talked about and see, you know, what the.
Yeah,
rest of
so
the board
what's the
feels about
summary of
that.
what we've got that we brought up? We brought up seeing if they can, you know, get a waiver on the frontage and the parking and the setbacks and all that to see if there's any way to pull things closer toward the road. We've talked
Yeah,
about the 6 foot, and was there?
I don't plan on doing that.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what it is we talked about as an actual item as opposed to just a general, you know, discomfort thing.
That's fine. We talked about the lip on the wall, the fence, kind of rounding off that pinch point.
Venting plan.
So I'm sorry.
Restoration plan behind the wall.
Yep. Woman seed behind the wall. Move those pipe fittings and materials away from the wetlands. That was everything. In terms of,
And
All right, so you've been taking notes. You've got a list.
and making the adjustment at the pinch point, right?
yeah. But in terms of, you know, looking at moving the building forward, we're not going to go that route. I mean, then, you know, that's a whole other process. You know, with the zoning board, I highly doubt they're going to approve that. You know, because like we said, we need some sort of, you know, reason to do that. You know, but you know, we can build this project. We can build this building within the setbacks. That's not a route that we intend on going down. We're more than happy to make these changes that we talked about tonight. Like Kevin said, we can double up on silt fence and silt sock if you want us to do that as well. Behind the wall, we can push the silt fence as far away from the wetlands as we can. You know, try and hold, you know, 13, 15 feet. We can do all of those things. I think it comes to a point where we just, you know, we're trying to kind of meet you in the middle a little bit here as best we can. You know, it gets to a point where, you know, we can't really do a whole lot more without this site not working for Kevin and his company. So I think we can do what we've talked about tonight, and kind of hopefully that will appease everybody.
All right. Well then, what's the what is it? The 16th is the next meeting. That'll be okay for you. You can.
Yep, that works for us.
And all put together by the 16th, or by what's the day before? The 16th, 15th, 14th, 13th, the 12th, so that we have enough time to, you know, if we get it the weekend before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get it in a week, you know, but so yeah, we can get it in a week before, you know, by the 8th or 9th. That's fine.
Okay.
Give you plenty of time.
All right. Well then, yeah. Let's have a motion to, you know, let them get to work on these ideas, and we'll see what they come back with. And yeah, let's see them again.
So I would make a motion to continue the meeting to February. What's the date? The 16th?
16th, right? Yeah.
Second.
February
16th,
16th.
7 p.m. Brilliant. Thank you. Roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
No. Oh, there he is. Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Peter. And I will also vote in the affirmative. Peter, you are muted, but I think you voted yes. All right. All right. Well, then we'll look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and hopefully moving somewhere more productive.
Okay, hey,
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Moving right along, we have Edward and Jody Leonard at 61 Elm Street, DP 050 TBD, an NOI for clearing of trees, construction of a new residential structure, a new driveway, and a new septic system. Clearing of trees and driveway are within the resource area buffer zone. All right, the Leonards. I see Jody on the side.
I think Matt Stein.
Yeah, Matt's
Yes.
gonna talk for us.
Sorry, I was fumbling with my mute button. Yeah, Matt from Millennium Engineering, once again here representing the Leonards with their application before you. This plan was before the commission at their last hearing and was subject to a site walk. I believe it was this past Saturday, where the commission reviewed the centerline staking of the driveway, the restaking and review of the wetland, as well as the front two corners of the house and the septic. And then we had Sergio Bellini from Mission Ecological out to the site prior to the site walk to review the wetland line, and he made a couple adjustments to 3 of the flags that are on site. I'm going to share my screen now so you can see what I'm talking about. For the commissioners who were not able to attend the site walk, Sergio went out and he reviewed the entirety of the wetland line as it was staked, and he moved 2 flags. He took flag 3 and moved it upslope about 5 feet. He took flag 5, moved it upslope a little over 30 feet. It was, I think, 32 feet. And he deleted flag 4. So the solid line is the adjusted line, and the dash line was the original delineated line as we had originally presented it. In addressing some of the comments that the commission had at the last meeting, we looked at the fill on the side of the driveway here. There was a comment about a possible retaining wall. We've looked at the cost on that there, and for such a long stretch of driveway here, it really isn't viable. So what we did was we proposed on the 3-to-1 slopes here the use of a Coir mat Model 40 or an approved equivalent mat that would be laid on the ground as slope stabilization that could then be planted until the surface was fully vegetated, ensuring that the slope would remain stabilized until it was fully grown, in which case, once we obtain full stabilization, this particular model of Coir mat is biodegradable. It would break down and we'd attain full stabilization of that slope. In addition to that, there was a question about the drainage ditch that was out front here, whether or not it would key out as a wetland, which would cause the wetland line to be adjusted in this location as well. Sergio looked at that. He indicated that it didn't key out as a wetland, but in doing the site walk, Mary had pointed out that she had gone down the roadways and seen that it had connected to a wetland further down, and as a result, it would likely key out as an intermittent stream and bank. And so we proposed the installation of a 12-inch CMP culvert pipe here. I am aware that that plan was submitted to the board just a day ago, and that there were some comments that were kind of bouncing back and forth with Mary and the agent and my office that we still need to address. I've reviewed those comments. This plan does not represent the final plan. We'll have to address those comments there, but they're all relatively simple. We agree to the comments that were made and agree to make those changes as far as looking at a possible span. We're thinking along the lines of some type of a Storm Tech 36-inch wide, 18-inch tall, span that would go there instead of the 12-inch CMP pipe. And we just need to run the calcs on that and swap that pipe out for that type of a crossing instead. There was an additional comment about a construction entrance that needed to be shown on the plan here that we will be showing here in the area of the 56 contour. That needs to be added to the plan. It's a very simple detail. We can do that very quickly. So I believe that the changes that are requested, we agree to all of them. I think they're very simple. We can make them quickly and get them back to the board. And we're here tonight to present the updated plan and ask that the board consider potential approval for this project with those conditions, and we can get that plan to Bill here probably before the end of this week.
All right. Thank you. All right. I did miss the site walk, so it's too bad for me. But in the meantime, Bill Holt, anything on your end before going through with the board on any follow-up comments after the site walk or after looking at what they've seen and heard so far?
Yeah, we did. So Mary took a walk, and we did a couple of soil samples, just at the line to make sure that the line looked appropriate with the soil types that were on the upland side. I don't think there was any issues with any of the flag line, and I think also the swale, the ditch along the road, it was agreed that it was not a hydric soil, so there was not any reason to identify that as wetlands, but it is a intermittent stream that connects a wetland above. She also took a look in the back. There's a couple of low spots in the back that we took a look at, and didn't appear to be any issues with any type of wetland areas up back. So the house, the septic are outside the buffer. It's just a driveway. I'm satisfied with his regrading and stabilization methods for the construction of the slope. I think the construction entrance, he needs to add that, which is a fairly simple detail, like you said, and just to demonstrate where it's going to be on the plan view. The span, converting that culvert to a span. I think it's a standard standard guidelines, and he has to meet a couple of things with that. So I'm okay with what he's proposing. I got to see these ultimate calculations and see what they look like. They do have a DEP number. I think it's 1342, and there was, I don't believe, any comments at this point from DEP that I saw. I don't know if there's any pending, but there was no comments as of today. If it's agreeable to the commission to revise the plans and then close the hearing out, that's something that I'm not sure we should do, but we could do. I don't see an issue with a couple of changes he's making, but I'll leave it up to the commission to decide how they want to proceed with that. So
all right. All right, thanks. Let's go around. Ben, anything on your end?
No, I was unfortunately at the last second unable to make the site walk. I apologize about that. I'm quite confident in Mary and Bill's opinion on this, but I do think that we just got lectured by DEP for doing something very similar to this, and I'm in no mood to go down that route again. And I think that while it would also cost, as Tom could probably tell them, it's going to cost you months of, if they do intervene and get pissed off about it, it's going to cost you months and months of going back and forth with them. So you're better off to wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks and wait for the next meeting and not.
Yeah. All right. Bill Lord.
I was at the site walk. If we had those changes, I think we could approve it.
All right.
If we can't, we should wait.
Okay. Daniel?
The only thing I'm just looking at a little bit is the other side of the road, the uphill side of the driveway. There's a piece of ledge there. I'm just sort of wondering the intent to have 3 to 1 on that side as well, or, or gradual, or, what happens if that ledge is right there,
Yes. Yep. So the ledge that's here, it is actually not as big as it looks on here. This is a little deceiving. Those who made the sidewalk saw that it was only small little outcrops that were sticking out. So I don't believe that it's to the extent that we're showing here. I think we're going to have no issue with breaking up the ledge on this edge and being able to get that in. I will tell the commission that there is a very good possibility. The reason we're here tonight and we're asking for a closing of this particular application is because the applicants are not the owners of the land. They have it under agreement, and right now they have a purchase and sale coming up, which will have to be extended. And they have conditions on their agreement where every time they extend it, it costs them a pretty significant amount of money. So they're hoping to avoid that if they can close this out as something that can be built, even with the conditions that we revised the plan to address the comments that Mary had up there on the crossing. Then that would allow them to move forward with the closing. And they fully intend to investigate the idea that was discussed on site about the possibility of taking the driveway and straightening it out and coming up the hill this way, pulling it away from the wetland. We feel that that will shorten the length of the driveway. We didn't actually do the original design on this. Beals Associates did this back in 2013 when it was originally approved, and this is the layout and the design that they had. And we were asked to basically get the original approval approved again to extend it, even though it had expired for all intents and purposes. So we didn't make any changes to the design, but they're going to look at the possibility of coming in straight and coming up the hill here outside of the buffer zone, pulling all this work outside of the buffer zone. And so if that occurs, we will definitely be back to the commission with a revised plan anyways for a minor modification to show that the work's being pulled out. But for the purposes of what they're trying to accomplish here and get to the point where they can close on the property and not have these fees associated, that's the reason we're not asking for a continuance to come back to the board with the changes out at the driveway at the crossing. I know what I apologize if I butcher your name, but Commissioner Gahagan, I appreciate what you're saying with DEP coming back and possibly intervening in this, but the fact that DEP has already reviewed this and has come back with no comments, I think the risk of that is relatively low. So it's more, in our opinion, how comfortable the board is with receiving those changes after the fact, if they're significant and require a second set of eyes and review, or whether you think that they're minor enough that Agent Holt can review them after the fact and determine whether or not it meets the intent that the board was requesting.
I appreciate that. I just had a personal conversation with the circuit rider for DEP following this last one, and she made the exact point that approving plans we have not reviewed is not something we should be doing. And she picked up on us doing that by watching YouTube videos of our meeting.
Gotcha.
So, well, I agree with you. I don't think there's any technical aspect of this for DEP as far as what you've planned to intervene on. They may just do it because they just told us to stop doing this, and then we would do it again. So that's where I'm coming from. I totally agree with you on everything else, and I'm very, very, very understanding and sympathetic of what's going on here and the reasons to do it. I'm just pointing out to what we have very freshly been told.
Yeah, so let's keep rolling on. Who are we up to? I lost track. The idea of
Commissioner Streeter, I don't know if I cut him off.
No, you answered my question.
Ben just made me smile because we did get told off, and the idea of, this conversation on YouTube very quickly turning into another intervention it just made me giggle. Anyway, Kevin, it's your turn.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Ben and his sentiments. I think it's not a great situation all around. So but I unfortunately agree with Ben. I don't want to. But
if the rest of the commission wants to roll,
usually a good choice to not want to agree with Ben.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It's just the rules are that we've been this in prior incarnations and compositions. This commission has been well known throughout the North Shore for not following the rules. So, I'm just telling you what I was told.
Yeah.
Then this would be a good time to quote Back to the Future.
Which I'm sorry, I'm usually really good with movie quotes, and I'm not going to do it. I can't come up with this one.
Rules? Where we're going, we don't need rules.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I always go to like badges. We don't need no stinking badges. Okay.
Anyway, we're getting distracted. Yeah, Mary, what's on your mind? And especially Mary, I'd be curious to hear about your walk on the stream, since I missed that, and you saw a few things.
And I think that there's some things that need to be added to the plan, like the location of a part of the resource area that's not shown on the plan, and a culvert that's not shown on the plan. There's a culvert, but it's going to be changed. So there's significant changes to the plan. They're not just housekeeping items. So I don't think we can close a hearing and approve this plan subject to getting another plan that has these things that we haven't reviewed yet. So I can appreciate the financial considerations that the applicant has, but I don't think we have a choice on this necessarily. So with that said, I'm reasonably comfortable with the plan. The delineation is fine, other than the stream not being shown. And I don't know, if they're going to flag it and resurvey it, or just estimate it based on a assumed width. I'm not sure which way you're going to go on that, but that wasn't discussed. If the plan is to potentially re-engineer the driveway to minimize the impact in the buffer zone, then we'd like to see that now and approve that now as part of this plan change. So I know that one of the neighbors was present at the site walk and was very concerned about the swing of the driveway towards their property, and if that can be avoided, and it hugs along the property line, that will be helpful to them as well. So I think that this delay will hopefully provide you an opportunity to look into that, because that certainly will make it much easier to approve if that much more of the driveway and the project is outside of the buffer zone. So the last point I would make is that if we do keep the curve in the driveway and the 3-to-1 slopes on the downslope side of the driveway, there's a fair amount of clearing that's needed to create those grades. And if you could provide a replanting plan for a portion of that slope so that we can get some of that revegetated shrubs or trees or something that can be some mitigation for the clearing that you have to do on a portion of that slope. Maybe not the entire thing, but the lower portion of the slope, and as far up as, use your judgment on how much of that, but it would be nice to be able to see some of that clearing be restored, because it won't really be needed. That land won't be usable.
Hey, Mary, could you speak to the culvert? Did it look fairly undersized, pretty undersized, or what size?
The issue is more to meeting, once you're crossing a stream, you have to meet the DEP stream crossing standards. And the stream crossing standards have an openness ratio that you have to meet. So they have to size. It's not really a flow consideration. There's a 24-inch pipe a 12-inch pipe is probably enough to accommodate the flow, because that's probably what they have on some of the other driveways upstream. But in order to meet the new stream crossing standards, which is partly to accommodate wildlife crossing, you need to be 1.2 times the bankful width for a span, and the openness ratio of 0.82 is, so they need to make sure their culvert meets the math that's required for the stream crossing standards. And it sounds like from Matt's comments that they are aware of that, and a 36-inch span is probably going to be plenty to accommodate that. So that's what they're proposing to put in.
Okay. Yeah, the stream crossing stuff can be tricky sometimes. All right. Peter, how about yourself?
I apologize. I was not able to do the sidewalk, and I'm very sensitive to the economic considerations that are taking place with this particular application. But it sounds like there's some redesign configurations going into this, and it would make sense that if they're going to be done, that they be done and then presented so that there won't be any confusion or misinterpretation. It'll be cleanest, I think, for the applicant for it to be all defined, especially if this is the driveway. So a little breathing opportunity might be beneficial in this situation, I think.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Yeah, as for myself, I don't think there's anything beyond what anybody else has already said. You know, my comment really was about the culvert. You know, hopefully, you know, recognizing the cost issues getting involved in this, hopefully, you know, then the fine print, there's, you know, regulatory act of God stuff that maybe you guys can draw upon to sort of punt the, you know, the closing costs a little bit. But, you know, you know, to Ben's point, you know, we did just go through this, and I don't know if you were here the whole meeting, but one of the earlier presentations was by, you know, a fellow who had to wait, you know, more or less 2 months to finish, you know, his project because of that exact reason. So, you know, it is a real issue. And the other thing is that, in a manner of speaking, if DEP were to intervene, there's a fully realistic chance that you would have to deal with the state for the permit rather than necessarily with us, especially on a big change like the ones we're talking about. In his case, he was able to come back to us. The state allowed it to come back because it was a planting plan that caused the trouble. Something like a culvert or driveway redesign, you know, you could potentially end up staying with the state, which, you know, might not be as easy to interact with as I like to think we are. So, you know, I think, you know, we all apologize, and, you know, we feel you on the personal situation, but we don't really feel like we have a choice in the matter either. You know, it's not necessarily an option that we really have. So, you know, just on our part, you know, sorry about that. But that being said, is there anybody from the public? There was a neighbor that was on the sidewalk. Are they or anybody else here to comment on this one?
Let's see.
Going twice. Okay. Okay. So then I presume that we will, you guys want to be here again on the 16th.
Yes.
Matthew, do you guys have any final comments?
No. Just to address, I guess, one of Mary's comments, she had asked how we were going to delineate the edge of the bank. So we can have Sergio go back out there if we need to have him look at it. But my understanding is the definition of the bank or the stream is the outermost top bank or the first observable break in the bank. And we have it all topoed with our survey crew. So I think we can get a pretty good defined channel there. And if that's sufficient, if it's not, we can have Sergio go out there and take a quick look at it and hang some flags. I just think it's pretty defined over there. I think it's obvious where it is. And
yeah, it's mean high water or first observable break, whichever's lower.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well then, yeah, would anyone like to make a motion to see these guys on the 16th?
Motion to continue to the 16th.
Second.
All right. Roll call. Benjamin.
Regretfully, yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
Regrettably, yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
All right. Mary.
Yes.
And Peter. All right. And I'll also vote in the affirmative. So hopefully those plans can all get sorted out in the meantime, and we can finish this off next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. What is next on our Justin Leonard, 3 Southern Boulevard, Plum Island, DP number 050 TBD, a continued NOI to restore an existing small parking area.
Mr. Leonard has asked that we continue this until February 16th. We need to get together. I need to get together with him. We still haven't had a chance to connect and to discuss what he needs to do. So I will hopefully get to him this week, if not early next week, and we'll have something by the 16th of February.
Okay. Is there anybody here for that one? Members of the public on the side? Going once, going twice. All right. All right, well then let's have a motion to on that one.
Motion to continue that one till the next meeting.
To the 16th at 7 p.m.
I will second that.
All right, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel. Kevin.
Yes, and Tom, I love your background picture.
Nice. Mary.
Yes.
And Peter. And I will also vote in the affirmative. So, moving right along. What do we have? We have certificates of compliance. 78 Old Point Road, Liberty Real Estate Strategy, care of Robert Stampetti, DP 050-1271. This is recorded in the Salem Registry of Deeds, book 37159, page 126. This is a partial release COC. All right, Bill Holt, what do we got?
Well, Tom Hughes is present, and he will, I think, present the request for certificate of compliance.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, and actually the request.
Tom, hold on. Before you start, we have to interrupt. Did you just do that?
What?
While you were waiting between your last presentation, this one is that?
This is my Newbury site that's so well known that a lot of famous people come to sit in it. Hey, somebody had to do it, right? So the property at 78 Old Point, the certificate of compliance request is actually from the Damon Amato. There's an LLC that now owns the property. Damon works with Ben Laguerre. You may know Ben. He's a local builder. They had actually farmed this out to another builder and went belly up while they were in the process. So Ben and Damon take it back over. Finish the construction on the house. They still need to do some things with the landscape. We may need to come in with a plan change, which I'll go over with you guys in a second real quickly. But what we're looking to do is get a partial certificate just to cover the structure and the associated utility components of that, just so that we narrow down what the risk is in closing on the property. Somebody does want to buy it. We want to just make sure that everything that's left has to do with driveway, the landscaping, the patio, the other elements that aren't constructed yet. So we've given you a letter that details the deviations from the site plan. One of them I do want to point to, Everett Chandler, who's a surveyor, noted that the utility chase is 3.5 by 3.5 and not 24 round that was shown on the plan. In the narrative, I did note that the utility chase would not exceed 3.5 by 3.5. So that was included in the NOI, that it might be bigger than the, I think it was shown as a 24-inch round, but the 3.5 by 3.5 is pretty standard. Other changes, the compressor was hung off the rear of the structure. The deck was not built as large. I'm trying to think, the propane tank was put at grade. apparently the propane companies are balking at the idea of these tanks up on shelves, which we'd been showing on plans for a while, because they claim that, you know, they need to have a ladder or stairs in order to get up on these things in order to fill them. So they're all pretty minor deviations. And so what remains to the patio, the parking area, and if you want, I can share the screen and just kind of go through that with you real quick. But let's see. So this is the structure as built in the cover letter that I had. So the this is the list of deviations. I can go through it if you want in more detail. All right, so now so the structure is shown. This deck, I can show you the approved plan. The deck was originally approved to be angled out further. It was just cut off at the shortest dimension, so it ended up being smaller. The gravel driveway was installed straight across, and what was shown on the approved plan, and this is why we're not looking to get closeout on that, was two 9-foot wide stripes. And we made that during the hearing process based on a comment from the former agent that we could only have two 9-foot wide parking spaces on the site. At the time, we didn't really do any regulatory analysis on that. We just made the plan change. Since then, I've looked at your bylaw, and the 9x18 parking requirement is in the definition of development redevelopment. So where that comes into play is it limits somebody who does not already have two parking spaces to only two parking spaces when they're in the V and the AO zones, because those zones have a prohibition against new development. So the parking limitation is within the definition of what constitutes new development. So if you go more than two 9x18s, you end up being in the new development category, is prohibited in the V and the AO. This site being in the AE, that standard actually would not have applied. So we're looking at whether we want to go back to the plan as approved or come into you with some type of a modified plan that would maybe cut back on the patio size and fill in the middle, because this is really not, it doesn't really do a lot for the dune to have this stripe in the middle, and it does make it tougher to pull in and out of the parking spaces. So I'm not asking for you to rule on anything on that tonight. If we do come in for a modification, I'll lay out my full regulatory analysis so you can evaluate it and, you know, see if we all agree on my interpretation of it. But for now, what we're looking out for is a sign off on the house itself, which, you know, we've given you the as-built plan on. And then everything else outside the footprint of the house, not in, you know, other than the, obviously the utilities, everything else, the landscape portion of it, will come back to you with an additional COC request that would include all the plantings and landscape, et cetera. And if you don't remember what this site looked like, it was kind of, not much was there other than piles of junk, decrepit old house. There was not a lot of functional dune on site when we started.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Bill Holt, what do you see?
Well, I agree that the structure is done, you know, for it's a partial release. I don't really have an issue with releasing the structure so that they can make the sale. Obviously, we want to retain the full release when the rest of the site work is done. So it's a pleasure of the commission, I guess, if they, I don't have an issue with it, but you know, the other issues, the parking and the landscaping can be dealt with in the spring when it's finalized.
All right. Going out to the commission then, just broadly, any comments for or against?
Can you remind me what the elevation is here?
The Well, so it's floodplain elevation is a E13, and there were spot grades on the plan. So the ground elevation 8, 9.3. I think it kind of holds in that a little bit above 9 up into maybe close to 10 in some points, like 9.8, 9.6, 9.6, 9.2. So the flood's about, in the area of the house, it's about 4 feet above grade.
Okay, thank you. So my only outstanding issue with doing this is the propane tank. We haven't made any exceptions in my memory about this. You know, so I understand the logistical issue with the company, and we need to figure out some way around it.
So the propane tank, I need to confirm this, but I believe it's lashed to a pile. And so there are, if you look around this area, including recently constructed homes, all the propane tanks are on the ground. This commission has allowed some to be buried with the proper ballast as well.
Yep.
And I believe that the fire department no longer wants them up on shelves after the fire that was on 20th Street, where the tank didn't blow up, but they were very nervous about its location during that fire. But that was hearsay, so I don't have that directly from the fire department. I think if it's lashed to the, attached to the pile, then it's not going anywhere.
I heard you say you believe it's lashed to the pile. Is it lashed to a pile?
That have a certain answer. If you give me a second, I can text the client.
I see another Ben on here. Is that your client?
That may be.
Yeah, I'm on here.
Yeah, Ben, is that attached to the pile?
I believe it. I sent the guys to do it, so it should be. I haven't been. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect the question, but it should be. I did send the guys to do it, so.
So if we could basically have you vote the decision, but not authorize Bill to actually issue it to us till we get a picture of it.
Yeah, I could bring in a picture, proving it, the next day or two, and just don't release anything subject to that picture. I had COVID my wife had COVID. That's why I haven't been to site in a couple weeks. That's why I couldn't check on it.
Glad you're doing all right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
It's been actually I've been in lockdown for since early January, so I can definitely get you guys a picture in the next couple of days. Just make it subject to that, and we can bring that in.
Yeah, and do it by email, Ben.
Okay. Yeah. I will.
But yeah, we can prove the propane tank is attached to the pile for, is I think one of the FEMA acceptable ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time I've heard that about the propane tanks. I've recently inspected a new construction in Newburyport, and the builder was stating the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think my lesson for future plans is if we're going to put them up on a deck, we need to include stairs up to the deck and enough room for the propane guy to go around. I can't believe in today's day they can't put some kind of filler extension on it so they can fill it from grade, but who's going to fight Eastern Propane or whoever it is?
Yeah, they're pretty intense on how they feel they want to do it. And it didn't, directly across the street is a new construction house, and they kind of pointed out to there that this is what we've been doing. So as long as it's strapped, I mean, hopefully, we could get at least the partial, as long as we can bring in the evidence of that.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Dan.
I just want to, beat this propane thing to death here, but I think I think what we need in the future, if this is the way it's going to be, we actually have to have some specification of how they are attached. I mean, it's not like just tie a rope around it. It probably needs to support it top and bottom, and the thing you're trying to avoid is the tank floating away.
Right.
Snapping the line. So for the, purposes of this certificate, I mean, I think hopefully it looks good, but we maybe need to think more about details in the future.
So I will also look up and see if FEMA has a standard for it. If FEMA does, I'll make sure with Ben that it is actually done that way. If it hasn't been done that way yet, to make sure it meets any FEMA standard along those lines. Otherwise, I'm happy to have discussions with Bill about maybe coming up with a uniform standard for that.
I'll ask Peter Bennett too. He's building inspector. He may know exactly how it's supposed to be done.
But I think it has to be a strap that's capable of dealing with the buoyancy of a propane tank, which is why when you bury them, you have to have a massive concrete block in a floodplain to keep it from becoming buoyant. So we can certainly make sure of that and confirm that with you before Bill releases the certificate of compliance. But I think it's a good idea to maybe. I know that the fire department came out with burial standards for the propane tank. It may be good to work on a uniform standard that is out there for folks planning houses.
Very good.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts or commentary? All right. Sounds like we've got an opinion that more or less we can issue this, assuming that Bill gets what has been promised. So would anyone like to make a motion?
Move to issue the partial certificate to be held until proof of securing of the propane tank.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call. Benjamin.
Yes.
Are you sure?
My only doubts are the same thing we just went through with the lines. I'm just trying to figure out where that line is. That's why I've been told that it has been lashed. I believe that it has been lashed. From there, I'm fine.
Okay. Bill Lord.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
And Peter.
Yes.
And I will also vote in the affirmative. So when you guys get those pictures, we can find some things. Oh, wait a second. That speaks to that. We need to sign these, don't we? Is there a deadline that you have, or you just need the vote to move forward on your end?
And when did you guys reschedule the closing for?
Honestly, I'd have to check. I think it's like 2 days after the meeting. I think I'm cleared to I can at least go to site now. So I will definitely go tomorrow morning and try to figure out, that it's done right, get the pictures, everything like that. So a couple days if possible. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
I have
to be honest with you, I've been in complete kind of isolation, so my partner would know better.
Yeah, it just might be tricky to get all of the signatures to put pen to paper.
What do you guys think's a reasonable? I mean, I could try to. I mean, we've been pushing for a while, so if I need a couple extra days, do you think? What do you guys think reasonable?
I'm just gonna go on a limb and guess. It'd probably take a week to get them all.
Okay. If we can get it done with a week, I'll say that's fine.
Guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll refer, I mean, yeah, I'll refer the message. I mean, I know we did have a closing before that, but we've extended before, so I don't see it, you know, unless something blows up. I mean, that should be fine, I think. Yeah.
Well, if the propane tank is properly latched.
Yeah. And I'll, you know,
Nothing
I'm
should blow
breaking
up.
free of my quarantine, so I'll go definitely check that tomorrow. And obviously, we will get you the pictures and make sure it's done correctly. So I'll go out and make sure at least if it's done correctly as well. So.
Yeah, Ben, text me the picture and also text me the material that was used
Okay.
to latch it.
Okay.
And,
Sounds good.
I'll coordinate with Bill about what he finds out about any town requirements for it, and I'll also check
Okay.
requirements, and we'll get all that material into Bill ASAP. And if you guys
Yep.
can sign stuff, the nice thing about a COC is it's not a public hearing. So if this thing doesn't somehow work out, we can always come back at the next meeting and be on the agenda without, this is not like an order of conditions where if you close it tonight, we can't somehow come back without re-notifying and all that. So
yeah,
I appreciate the commission's flexibility, and we
get
you all this stuff ASAP.
Yep.
All right, great. All right, thank you. And then let's move on to our last item of paperwork. 61 Elm Street.
Do we have to vote though to issue the partial certificate?
Did we?
Do we have to vote?
I thought we did just vote. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought we did too.
What just happened?
No, I think that, no, we did vote. Yeah, we did, because I had a very unsure.
We voted.
You guys
voted.
did
Okay.
vote, but Daniel wanted it to make sure that the propane tank was fastened.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we're
I'm
good.
losing track here.
Okay.
It's been a long night.
Hard to tell. It's 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's
I
go to
get
bed.
to go now. Thank you. Take
I
care.
really want to hear more of Bill's chimes.
All right. Hey, let's get to the end of this. 61 Elm Street, CP Berry Construction, care of Alan Berry, DEP number 0501117, recorded in Salem Registry of Deeds, book 32487, page 191. It's an expired order of conditions.
Yep.
What's going on here?
This is 61 Elm Street, which we just discussed, the vacant lot that they're trying to build on. And I guess they discovered this outstanding order of conditions was on the books and hasn't been signed off. Obviously, no work has been done out there, so it's an expired OOC with no work being performed. So it's a simple sign off. If you vote to issue it, we can issue it. And I think there's a box to check for the expired OOC. Pretty simple. So I don't have any issues with it.
All right.
You're willing to vote for it.
All right. Any questions from anybody?
Unless Mr. Jesperson has something to say.
No, I don't. It's, I think, normally just clears the way for our next potential buyers when they come back in 3 weeks to get this through with their order of conditions and approvals. So that's it for me.
Thank you much, and thank you for sitting through this whole thing.
It's not the first one. More people.
Yeah, that was a big one. All right, well then, somebody make a motion.
Move to issue the order.
Certificate of compliance? Yep.
Certificate, excuse me.
Yep. Second.
All right, roll call. Ben.
Yep.
Bill.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes. Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
And Peter.
Okay.
Also vote affirmatively. Okay, great. Done. No extension permits, no emergency certificates, no reissuances. Other business, the Newberry Wetland bylaw discussion at 10:50.
No.
Man, all right.
You got no time. I can send it all to you, what I got written up. So I got comments from a few members. I put it together with the markup. different color so you can see what the comments were. I don't know if you want to see it now, if you want me to send it all to you. And
No, don't show it to us.
No, thank you.
I'll send it to you individually. You can take a look at them and make more comments if you
Thank
want
you
to.
very much, Phil.
And what, Bill Holt, the idea is that we will arguably agree on something at an upcoming meeting and then post that online. And are we still on a good calendar to make the next meeting, the town meeting?
That I'll have to check. I think I see when deadline, the cutoff date for the spring meeting is. We may end up having to go to the fall, depending on, we might be able to make it, I think. Because there's not much more to hash out. There was only about 4 or 5 items that needed to be looked at. Definitions were one of them.
All right, just do us a favor and maybe put together an email for all of us for sort of the relevant dates that we need to sort of do X by.
Okay.
So that, we all know what kind of schedule we're trying to keep. Okay, great. Thank you, Bill. What's left? We have a site walk on Saturday, January 23rd at 10 a.m. That happened already.
Yeah, that's left over.
That's left over. And the signature for enforcement order at 21 Cottage. If anybody hasn't signed, please go do that.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to go to bed?
I do, but I also want to say, is Kathy our new permanent staff member?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Ben. You're welcome. And if I got half of this right, I'll be so happy.
She might run away after tonight. I don't know.
That's the start.
Oh, I
They're not
don't
usually
run.
this long, are they?
I do not run.
I make them shorter.
They haven't been this long since we started pushing to more frequent meetings. But
Yeah, we were trying to avoid this, and it happened anyway.
anyways, all right. I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Second
I'll
it.
second that.
Good night.
Night.
Roll
Good night.
call. Benjamin,
Yep.
Bill, Dan,
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Kevin, Mary,
Yes.
Peter.
Yes, yes,
And I
yes.
also vote in the affirmative. Okay, good.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, everybody.
Good night.